Are you sitting comfortably? Then we'll begin.
Welcome back, my friends, to the show that never ends. There's still time. The AFTN Soccer Show, broadcasting on CITR Radio 101.9 FM from the unceded Musqueam Territory at the University of beautiful British Columbia. I'm Michael McCall, and I'm your host for this episode. And don't worry, I'm not just on my own-some. Zach will be joining me for parts 3 and 4. We're doing this episode a little bit different. I thought I would try a couple of new things. We're going to be talking Whitecaps, Pumas in the first leg of the CONCACAF Champions Cup quarterfinals. We've got a couple of feature interviews for you. The first one coming up in part 2 with CPL Commissioner Mark Noonan, and then former Whitecap and current Pacific FC player Marco Bustos chats with us in part 3. This is also our Canadian Premier League preview show as the CPL season, the 7th CPL season, gets underway this coming weekend. 4 games on the slate over Saturday and Sunday, with the first of hopefully many on TSN, as well as Forge take on Cavalry in a rematch of last year's championship game. So we'll talk about all of that. Zach will join me for the preview parts in parts 3 and 4. And before we get into the Whitecaps chat in this part, got to talk about the US Open Cup. The second round went on Tuesday and Wednesday. 16 ties, 6 on Tuesday night, 10 on Wednesday. Couple of amateur teams still around in the competition. You love to see it. You also love to see them, or anyone really, pulling off some cup shocks, and that's exactly what we've had in this round. It's been a fantastic couple of days of action. Tuesday was glued to YouTube, taking in all the games, and a few shocks in there as well. One almost taking place in Georgia, as USL One side South Georgia Tormenta, fantastic name for a football team, were hosting amateur side Foro from Dallas in Texas and the UPSL. What a game that was. It finished 3-2 to Tormenta, and going into stoppage time, Tormenta led 2-1. Foro got a penalty to make it 2-2. It looked like the game was going to extra time. The referee had indicated 2 minutes of stoppage time as the game went into stoppage time. That penalty then seemed to increase the stoppage time to 7 minutes, and in that time, Tormenta FC got the winner. But that wasn't the end of it, because the game somehow went into the 12th minute of stoppage time. At one point, I was starting to think, did the referee think this game's just gone into extra time? But no, he didn't, and it finished 3-2 to the USL One side. A result I loved to see. Inter Miami 2. That wasn't what they scored, but their second team in the Miami Derby went down to USL Championship side Miami FC, the original Miami team of the current era. 1-0 to the USL Miami side, coming late in the game as well. Inter Miami 2 had dominated that game, but Miami came up with the victory. That was fantastic to see. Another shock as USL 1 side Charlotte Independence saw off MLS Next Pro's Carolina Core 2-1 after extra time. And then the last two results on Tuesday. Couple of shocks. Amateur side El Farolito from San Francisco. They play in the NPSL. They're named after a restaurant. They saw off an MLS Next Pro side in the first round. They travelled a short distance down south to Monterey Bay, the USL Championship side, and they came away with a come-from-behind 2-1 victory. Great scenes in that one as well. Well done to El Farolito. And the last game of the night, wow, what a barn burner of a game that was, as AV Alta, USL League One side, saw off LAFC 2 from MLS Next Pro 2-1 after extra time. Alta trailed in that game. They tied it up as the 90 minutes approached, sending it to an extra 30. And what an extra 30 minutes it was. The drama came in the 120th minute. AV Alta head coach was sent off as he's walking around the pitch. Alta score a dramatic 120th minute winner. He comes around the advertising hoardings, celebrates on the pitch with his team, and the goal scorer for Alta took his shirt off. It was a second yellow, red card. They had to finish the game, see out stoppage time with 10 men, but they got the job done. Well done to El Farolita and to AV Alta. And that was Tuesday night's action. Now, I won't go into all the games that took place on Wednesday, primarily because, obviously, I was at the game tonight at BC Place and haven't had a chance to watch everything yet. Watched a little bit of some of the games before I headed downtown. And after I've got home, aside from doing this podcast, was watching the LAFC Inter Miami game. So on Thursday, I will catch up with all of Wednesday's action and we'll talk a little bit more about the US Open Cup in the weekend show. But we'll get into the Whitecaps chat now because, yes, it was an eventful evening at BC Place Wednesday night. CONCACAF Champions Cup quarter-final, the Whitecaps hosting Mexican powerhouse Pumas. And it was a kind of game that I think many expected in some regard. Now, I've got to say, it wasn't a classic. The Whitecaps, dominant, I felt, in this. They bossed this game. They were the better team. Like they showed at home to Monterey in the last round in that first leg. The better team, they deserved to come away from BC Place with a victory that night. And they deserved to come away from BC Place with a victory over Pumas as well. Unfortunately, though, one small, momentary lapse of concentration, some poor marking in the box. Pumas get an equaliser 3 minutes from time, a crucial away goal, and they now head into the second leg next week down in Mexico with that advantage. Now, stop me. Stop me. Stop me if you think that you've heard this one before. To quote Morrissey. Yeah, it is exactly how things played out against Monterey. And we saw what the Whitecaps did a couple of weeks ago. They went down to Mexico. They fell behind to an early goal and then they took over that match. They scored 2 goals. They gave up a very dodgy late one that should never really have been a penalty to begin with. But they got through that one. They've done it before in Mexico. They can go and do it again. And the mood of everyone in the Whitecaps after that match, disappointed that they didn't come away with a victory, but confident that they can go down to Mexico next week in the altitude of Mexico City and get the result they need and claim a famous semi-final berth. And that is the attitude you want. You want them to have the self-belief for one thing, but you also want them to be disappointed that they went up against one of Liga MX's finest and they weren't able to come away with that victory. So Jesper Sonson went in to this game, making 3 changes from the team that got that draw in soggy Toronto on Saturday afternoon. Now, 2 of those changes were enforced after the injuries picked up in that game by Anders Kubis and Matthias Laborda. Jesper confirmed on Tuesday in the pre-match press conference that Kubis has a dislocated shoulder, but But the hope is that he might be able to be in the squad for the weekend game. Failing that, hopefully for the second leg down in Mexico against Pumas. Now, it seems very quick to come back from a dislocated shoulder. He did say, Kuba said it wasn't as bad as first feared, so it's maybe not quite a dislocated shoulder. It's maybe something that just kind of popped out and has been put back in. He was missed in this game against Pumas tonight. That said, though, and I've been on his back at times last year and this year, Ralph Priso, I thought was excellent, coming in, doing that role, and really did well for the Whitecaps in that first leg. In fact, every single player, to a man, knew their role, knew what they had to do, executed it, and as I said, it was almost a perfect game plan by Jesper Sorensen, just coming undone in the 87th minute. But a lot of positives to take from this. Now, the first half, Whitecaps, clearly the better team. Pumas didn't even have a shot on target. Whitecaps had one shot on target, 4 shots in total. Pumas only able to muster one shot, and that didn't even test Yohei Takaoka. Now, 4 minutes in, Jean-Claude Ngando cut the ball back to Sebastian Berhalter just inside the box, and Seba's shot deflected wide for a corner. 3 minutes later, Tate Johnson, lovely through ball, just nearly slipped in Brian White. It eluded him and went all the way through to Padilla in the Pumas goal. But that was pretty much it for the first half action. There was some half chances for the Whitecaps, some crosses coming into the box, just asking for somebody to get on the end of them, but they weren't able to do that. And the teams went in at half-time goalless, and I would have taken a 0-0 from this game. For me, the most important thing in this game was keeping Pumas off the score sheet. If you could sneak a goal as well and go down to Mexico with the lead, fantastic. But if you're going down at 0-0, the ball is kind of in your core. It's almost advantage Whitecaps because you know that away goal is going to leave Pumas needing to score 2. Second half started pretty much in the same vein. Not a lot of excitement, but the most excitement was things that were happening off the pitch, with the bizarre lights going off about 4 times, I think, in total. Nobody at the Whitecaps knew what was going on with that. We were asking after the game, and nobody was able to find out exactly what was happening there. And you're like, oh no, let's hope it's not going to be a power cut and something that is going to make this game delayed or even postponed if they weren't able to get it fixed. Thankfully, that wasn't the case, and the action did get back underway. And it was just before a corner that led to the Whitecaps' goal that the lights went off for the last time. But in the 71st minute, Whitecaps took the lead, and there was a bit of shenanigans in the build-up to this. Jaden Nelson and Alex Padilla in the Pumas goal, a little knee to the back of the calf from Nelson into Padilla. Now, when I saw it live, I thought he was making the most of it. When you see it back from some angles, Nelson knew exactly what he was doing there. And he got a yellow card, but it kind of kicked things off and it sparked things. And then the corner comes in. Sebastian Berhalter, nice delivery. It's bouncing around in the Pumas box. No one can clear it. Brian White gets a connection with it finally. I don't even know if it was heading towards goal, but Ranko Veselinovic kind of stuck a foot out as well. The ball seemed to take a touch off the back of a Pumas defender. Seemed to take ages to trickle over the goal line, but Brian White getting the credit for the goal. Whitecaps jubilant, 1-0 in the lead in the 71st minute. Pumas furious and feeling that it should have been called back, and doing exactly what they did against Cavalry when they played them in the first round over on the island, trying to put the pressure on the officials to review it. Didn't work. The goal stood. It was a clean goal. More shenanigans after the goal as well. Jaden Nelson was right in the face of Padilla, giving him the shush finger to his mouth. That pissed off Pumas defender Paolo Benevendo, and he gave Nelson a shove in the upper torso. Nelson disappointingly went down holding his face. It was nowhere near his face. But it's like, hey, Pumas were into all the shithousery and disturbing the game as well. So It's not something you like to see, but I can kind of see why Nelson did it. But the goal stood. Whitecaps looking good. If they could get a second, that was going to be absolutely massive going into the second leg. Pumas by this point were not offering anything at all. But then from nowhere, 87th minute, they get a corner. Leonardo Suarez sends the corner. It's going to the back of the box. Wide open. Adalberto Coco Carrasquilla. And Jeevan Badwal tried to react and get back. He was maybe a little bit slow in reacting. He'd come on as a sub just a few minutes before. And the ball falls perfectly to Carrasquilla. And it's a beautiful volley. Don't think Yohei Takaoka knew much about it. Nestles in the back of the net. It's 1-1. You hear the huge cheer from the crowd, just kind of indicating exactly how many Pumas fans were in attendance there. But it was heartbreaking stuff for the Whitecaps. You just felt that they could have got that victory. And they pushed hard, to their credit, to try and snatch it as the game went into 7 minutes of stoppage time. 4 minutes into those 7, Idier Acampo, who had another fantastic game. He really rises to the occasion in these CONCACAF games. Whipped a lovely cross in from the right. Rising, unmarked, above everyone, Emmanuel Sabe. Great connection from Sabe. It's heading towards the goal, but Padilla, in a good position, manages to palm it away off the right post, and the danger is cleared. That was the closest it came to the Whitecaps getting the winner. Bit of handbags pushing and shoving in the closing minutes that saw Tristan Blackman pick up a yellow card for having his jersey pulled towards him. Absolutely ridiculous decision. I mean, on the whole, I thought the referee was good. He wasn't putting up any of the Pumas shit. I do have some complaints, though. I do feel that Alex Padilla was taking the complete piss and should have had a yellow card for time wasting, for his theatrics, for going down, holding on to the ball when he was trying to force the video review. Any one of those should have had a yellow card for the Pumas keeper. It didn't come. And we'll hear from Jesper Sorensen in a sec, but one of the things that he said after the game is because that wasn't clamped down upon, it let him get away with it. And I think that is an annoying aspect of it. The Pumas bench as well, former Whitecap Efrain Juarez, totally in the fourth official's face and ear for the majority of the second half. He was outside his technical area. The subs were abusing the fourth official. And again, no cards issued there. They needed to make an example. They needed to issue the cards, and they didn't. So that's some of my thoughts on the game. Let's just get some quick post-game thoughts from AFTN writer and occasional podcast co-host, Felipe Vallejo. So, Felipe, just what's your thoughts on how that one played out?
Yeah, it was a good game. I think a little bit disappointing to come away with a draw given how well the team played. I think Brian White's goal set him up for a grandstand finish, and just a little bit of switching off at the end there cost them the win. But I think, they've been here before against Monterrey. They just kind of have to do it again and get the result.
Bit disappointing, they switch off once and they get punished from it, but that's what happens in these games. You just can't give the opposition of this quality these chances. But I mean, as we've spoken to the players tonight, they're going down to Mexico next week with no fear. They've done it in Monterrey, as you say, and they've got a really good chance in this second leg. The away goal obviously is hanging over them again though.
Yeah, and I think the biggest focus for them going into the next game is just making sure that they score. That's going to be the biggest one, is that they know that they have to go in, they have to score one, if not two, and then try to see out the match. I don't really know, honestly, if that changes much of what the game plan originally was, but at least for them now, that gives them an extra sort of push to score, and then hopefully they can get the job done with it.
In agreement with Felipe there, it's a feeling, and I think this is just testament to how the Whitecaps are playing this year and how effective their game can be. Touched it at the start. There's a genuine feeling that they can go down to Mexico next week and get this job done, see it over the line, and set up a semi-final against LAFC, their old foes, or Messi's Miami. A lot of football to be played in both of those games yet. Let's hear some post-game comments now, though, from Whitecaps head coach Jesper Sorensen. So Jesper, almost a perfect game there, just one moment of switching off and you're punished for it.
Yeah, it's first leg of a 2-leg tie, so you want to also protect yourself a little bit. We know that it's great playing these ties. We also knew what we were up against, a team that came here to defend well. We didn't really have the quality in the crossings, but we got to the opportunities at least to get under them as we wanted. But and then we got the opener, and I think we didn't give much away, which we don't want to do at home in the first leg. Great game. A little chess here and there because nobody really wants to open up too early. But good game. The only thing I was a little bit... we could have scored in the end, of course, with Sabi's chance. That was a big chance. But I think we played well. I think we had good control over the game and we didn't give much away. So we should have created more out of the possession we had.
You've already shown this year you can go down and get what you need to get down in Mexico. So you're going down there next week with no fear, I imagine.
Yeah, there's nothing to fear. We are playing up against a good team that now they will be at home. We also saw today what's going to meet us. They will try and pull every trick out of the sleeve. Like we saw the goalie today. I hope that he survives. I think that he will. Maybe we see. That's how they play, and that's why it's also difficult. We're also going to play in different conditions with the altitude down there. But we believe in ourselves, and we've seen before that we can compete down there. So we'll try and do it again.
Another game in CONCACAF, and this one is quite the experience, just with everything and all the antics and Pumas. Just what do you make of it?
We were prepared for that. We know that's at first leg they would try to see if they can keep the ball out of play. We would try to see if we can get it in play. That's what it is. I think the referee protected them a little bit too much. We got 2 yellow cards where they actually were instigating. They were the aggressors in the situations, but that's what it is. That's also what makes it a little bit funny that you're up against something that you're not usually up against, and it's a little bit different. So it's first leg. We're ready for the second one in a week.
He's the gaffer. You can't try it on with him. He's the gaffer. Even when he's on a limb. He's the gaffer. When his back's against the wall, has the answer to it all.
So some thoughts from the gaffer there on the match, on the antics, on what might lie in store next week. Efrain Juarez, after the game as well, was very complimentary to the Whitecaps, felt they were a very good side, and he said he enjoyed being back in Vancouver. His time here was maybe fleeting, but he enjoyed being back, seeing the city, and it is set up nicely for the second leg down in Mexico City next Wednesday. And there were some good performances all round from the Whitecaps tonight. I mean, it was hard really to pick a man of the match. Everyone knew their role, as I said. Even the subs that came on did well. And I did like Jesper's tactics. He kind of went with quite a solid, not a lot of pace for the first hour, and then brought on Jayden Nelson, Emmanuel Sabi to stretch the game, use those wings, get the pace in. And it worked very, very well. As I said, it was almost a perfect game plan. It's just that one agonising moment that they kind of switched off. Ali Ahmed looked sharp, Jacine Gando looked sharp, Ralph Priso, as I mentioned, I thought he had a good game. Defensively, they coped easily with everything that Pumas threw at them apart from that one chance. Tristan Blackman, Ranko Veselinovic, not really troubled at all. Yohei Takaoka only had 2 shots on goal to face the whole night. He saved one easily, and then the other one ends up in the back of the net. I really liked what I saw from Emmanuel Sabi, and it's a small sample size so far from Sabi, but in all the games that I've seen him coming on, I really like what he is going to offer this team, and it's exciting. We're getting these guys back. If we can get Kubas back somehow for that second leg, That is going to be massive. I think Goldie's probably still too far away for that, but I'm excited for next Wednesday. Cannot wait for that to happen. Before that, of course, there is a big MLS match as Colorado Rapids come to town on Saturday afternoon. We will look over that in the next episode of the podcast. That one will come out on Monday. That is it for the Whitecaps chat, though, for this show. We're going to turn our attention to the CPL. For the remaining 3 parts, we're going to bring you our season preview on all 8 teams, an interview with former Whitecap and current Pacific FC midfielder Marco Bustos. But we'll kick things off with a chat with the CPL Commissioner himself, Mark Noonan, and we'll be back with that after the first song from our new Album of the Month.
Hi, I'm Brian White, and you're listening to the AFTN Soccer Show.
How could anyone be like you are to me? How could anyone be like you are to me? Waiting for another one. Maybe it's the big one. Called off the date 'cause I didn't think we'd have fun. How could I let you in? I wake up gasping every morning. How could anyone be like you are to me? How could anyone be like you are to me? My OCD, come see it in 3D, says you're too short for me, and I don't like your teeth. Yeah, I've gone crazy 2 times before, once in London, once at Colton, Denver. How could anyone be like you are to me? How could anyone be like you are to me?
Welcome back to the AFTN Soccer Show on CITR Radio 101.9 FM. And kicking off this part, it's the first song from our new Album of the Month for April 2025. And for once, I've come right up to date. I've actually picked an album that was released this year. It was released on January 10th by Brooklyn singer-songwriter Camille Schmidt. And the song you heard there was the first song that I heard from it. Immediately loved the song, loved the video. It came up as a YouTube recommendation. Hadn't heard of Camille Schmidt before. Immediately checked out her other stuff, and that is all fantastic. Highly recommend this album. That song there was called Cult in Denver, a song about attachments and relationships. It was also released as a single back in January, and we'll have more songs to come from Camille Schmidt's debut album, Nude Number 9, over the course of this month. Let me know what you think of it. But we're going to get back to the football chat now, and we're going to bring you the first of our 2 feature interviews in this episode of the show as we sit down with CPL Commissioner Mark Noonan. Mark took over the role of CPL Commissioner in August 2022, taking over from David Clanahan, and Mark about to start his 3rd full season in charge at the helm of the CPL. So I got a chance to sit down with Mark this week just to chat about the state of the league, how it's looking going into 2025, what went well in 2024, what do they need to build upon, the new broadcasting deal that was announced that will see games shown on TSN. We'll also talk expansion, how the league can capitalise on the World Cup being here next year, and a lot of other things as well. So go stick the kettle on, grab your biscuit of choice, and sit back and enjoy our chat with CPL Commissioner Mark Noonan. So, Mark, thank you for joining us on the show today. We had a chat last year when you were out in Langley at one of the matches, and exciting for the league going into year 7. How do you feel the state and the health of the league is going into this 7th season?
I feel really good about where we are, and you'll see it. There's no kind of silver bullets that are going to make us the English Premier League overnight, but you see it. Whether it was how competitive our clubs were in the TELUS Canadian Championships last year, Forge knocked CF Montreal out, but for the stupid away goals rule, both Cavalry and Forge had an opportunity. With Vancouver Whitecaps as well as Toronto FC. So you're seeing that. You saw us beat a Mexican club in the CONCACAF Champions Cup, and I think that we're incredibly competitive in both of the ties. And so you see what's happening on the field. Last year, 111 out of 112 games mattered in our standings, and it went down to the final day to see who qualified where for the playoffs and the quest for the cup. And you're just seeing a massively competitive league, and we're also starting to put the development tentacles in place where we are developing players that we know ultimately are going to go and be sold on. When you look at the likes of Kwesi Poku and Grady McDonald in Vancouver, and Emil Gazda from Pacific going over to CF Montreal. We're getting players into our system that are seeing CPL as a league of choice because they are getting opportunities to play games of consequence against men and be able to be seen in those games across the continent and into Europe, and using CPL as a stepping stone to start their career and move on. And to a man, every one of them said they'd never have gotten a move if it wasn't for CPL. And so we have this league that is a baby in the grand scheme of things. They're 7 years young, 2 of which were in COVID. But we're starting to do the things that it takes to become a grown-up. And that's what's really, really excited. Our business metrics improved again last year. Our ticket sales were up 13-14%, as was our sponsorship. You see in our stadiums the football culture that is being developed and nurtured and grown, and really starting to feel like a real football nation, a real football league. And that gives me great hope. We've got the accelerator of a World Cup on the horizon, which we're all incredibly excited about, no matter what part of the soccer world you are in Canada. It's going to be a major accelerator for us as the world descends on our shoulders, and everything leading into that and afterwards is just going to help us create a soccer country here in Canada.
Yeah, and I mean, what you were saying there, the end of last season, it was an exciting final day of the regular season. It was great to follow along in all the games because they did mean something, or 3 of the 4 meant something. Yep. And it was a year of successes, and you touched on them there. Heading now into 2025, what do you feel needs to improve? What needs to be better? Where do you see things changing to take this league up a step now?
Everything. I mean, there is on the pitch and off the pitch. We are a developing league, and we provide awards on the field that people are very conscious and aware of. Okay, who's going to win the Golden Boot or the Rookie of the Year, the Goalkeeper of the Year, the Coach of the Year? We have an annual awards thing. We have that for off the field as well. And our clubs are highly competitive off the field, where we have a department called Club Success, where they're competing for who's the ticket sales team of the year, who's the ticket sales executive of the year, who's got the best community program, who's got the best activation. And we need to get better on on and off the field to be the league that we want to be. And we want to be one of the top leagues in the CONCACAF region. And, I think we're on our way to doing that, but we got to get better at everything.
Well, one thing that's certainly going to help grow the league is you've got games now on TSN, and it's been long overdue that the major networks take an interest in this league. And I know, like, One Soccer is maligned by some people because you have to pay for it, without people realising, well, you're paying for TSN, you're paying for other stuff as well. So you've got these 4 games now coming on in April. My understanding is that there's going to be more announced as well. How important is this now for the league to be on a major network where you are going to have a lot more eyeballs on it?
Yeah, stay tuned on that, on this front. It's critically important for any league is to be able to, broaden your distribution of your product. We have a high quality product, and enough people haven't seen it to date. And I think you're familiar with the undue preference claim that we have brought against Rogers, which we had a favorable, very favorable ruling 2 years ago, and we're still waiting for some of the, shall I say, technicalities to be worked out on that. Yeah. But in the meantime, what we felt was, TSN has always been there as an option for us, but we wanted to pursue the claim of getting One Soccer distributed on the major distributors. But we said we're not going to wait any longer. We're still going to play that out. We haven't given up on that at all. We still believe that will have a good conclusion for us. But we saw the clock ticking with 440 something days before a World Cup coming to our soil, and we need to make sure that soccer fans know who the Canadian Premier League is, know who the players are, know who the markets are, know where we're going. They also need to fall in love with the men's national team and the women's national team. And, one of our missions is to make soccer, to make Canada fall in love with soccer and really be a soccer country on and off the field. And you can't do that unless you have broad distribution. So we've worked out an arrangement with TSN that we're really excited about, that you're going to see a lot more soccer on their air heading into the World Cup, which is great for us and great for them because they're the host broadcaster of the World Cup. So it's a really relationship we're really excited to see how it develops.
That's good to hear. And I don't know if you can say exactly about this, but was the deal, look, we know you want the Canada games, you can have these, but you need to take the CPL as well. You can't just pick what games you want to show.
We have a bunch of content, and we want to make sure that there's value in us in having a One Soccer subscription. So we're going to keep a bunch of very valuable content on One Soccer, but we also, we own the rights to the Gold Cup, for instance, and that's a CONCACAF event. But we want to, that's very attractive programming that we can take anywhere. We own the rights to the national teams. We own CPL. We own the rights to the TELUS Canadian Championships. So it's we with any distributor, and the way content rights holders are doing it these days, there's typically not a single place where you find everything. And
sadly,
you look at I know it can be frustrating, but those are just the economics of how this the debundling of the cable world has been working. But if you look at the NFL, you can find it in a lot of different places, and that's the nature of the world. So I think you're going to see us popping up in a number of different places, including TSN, including One Soccer. And the beauty of One Soccer and why somebody should subscribe to One Soccer, it is the home. We have people working 24/7, 365, and it's not just the live matches. It's all the analysis. It's all the understanding, the interviews, and it's the place that people are like us who just love the game and want to give it the best possible reporting. And you have an incredible professional like Christian Jack embedded essentially with the national team around the Nations League and working with his colleague at TSN, or somebody as good as they possibly can get, and Andy Petrillo hosting. It's really high quality content brought to you by people who care deeply about the subject matter and about Canadian soccer, and how do we continue to boost the sport that we all love.
Yeah, and like I have Telus out here, so I get it for $5 a month, and it's
Lucky
like
you.
fantastic. I know, but
Yeah.
I like that because it's easier as well to like fast
Mm-hmm.
forward and PVR the games and everything. So it
Yep.
works perfectly. And I tell people, if you've got
Mm-hmm.
Telus, it's $5. It's like that's nothing, and you
Right.
get all this football, and
Yeah.
it is a good channel. And there's lots of good content on it. And as you say, you've got the big tournaments that folk need to see. Like, if the
Yeah.
Whitecaps go on a big run and get to the
Mm-hmm.
CONCACAF Champions semi-final, possibly against Miami, that's a game people's going to want to have on their TVs and stuff as well.
No doubt about it.
Anyway, I know I'm preaching
And
to
these
the
and no, but it's also and you also need to understand is that it's not free. As you're right, you pay a cable subscription. This is just you're just paying different than what you're used to. But the players don't play for free. The stadiums
Yeah.
don't rent themselves, and there's an economic model that exists in the world of sports and entertainment that one way or the other has to be satisfied. And we're trying to figure out a way to give the people as much as they possibly want for as little as they possibly can. But there are some real economics as to how this world works that I wake up and I stare at every single day.
Yeah. I mean, now the CSB owns One Soccer and there's the Media Pro divorce, like what's happening with production of the games? Is it all in-house? Are you subcontracting that?
Yeah, I don't want to, and I wouldn't say CSB owns One Soccer. It's a company called Timeless, but
Okay.
it's certainly we are very well aligned with One Soccer. I think that's a good way to put it. And I can say that we are, One Soccer is doing its production. They have a partner that is a Canadian-based partner that I'm going to refrain
Okay.
by identifying because they want to do an announcement, I believe, this week, if I've got
Okay.
that straight about who it is. But yeah, so we have moved on from Media Pro. That is completely, no longer a relationship, and we are in kind of bringing everything back to Canada here, which is great.
Well, that is good. Now,
Yeah.
there's another new kid on the block. The NSL is starting off in a couple of weeks' time.
Yeah.
How do you see that in terms of like competition? Because they're in some of the same cities. Disposable
Yeah.
income isn't great for a lot of families. Some might have to choose. Do you see this as a competitor, or do you see it as a league that you can work together with and grow the game together?
Yeah, I think it's more the latter, and we've been very supportive of Diana and their group, and we believe that the rising tide lifts all boats, and it's about soccer. How do we, as a sport, compete against basketball, baseball, football, video games, and these other places that are being spent not on soccer? You remember, we also own League One, which is
Yes.
up to about 180 teams right now, which I think 90 of them are women. And if you look at the rosters, both of CPL and of NSL, a huge amount of players are coming through that system. And having owning the women's national team rights, we want to see NSL do well because they're going to make the national team stronger and make that property stronger. So we wish them well. We're rooting for them, and we know how hard it is. So we've been there to try and help. And when we're in the same markets, there's some collaboration going on. But rising tide lifts all boats, and it's about soccer for us.
That's good. What about the relationship with MLS? Because I know when the league started, lots of people didn't want to see the second teams of the Whitecaps or Toronto or Montreal in the league, and they didn't want really affiliations. Would you say you've got a good relationship with MLS? Speaking to Axel Schuster here, he feels it's a good relationship and he'd like it to grow.
It's funny. It is a good relationship. I watched the Toronto FC Whitecaps game with Axel this weekend.
I mean, that would have
Um,
been nice apart from the game itself, which was horrible.
and fortunately we were in the Whitecaps suite, so we didn't have to be out in the elements like the
Yeah.
real fans because it was not a great weather day.
No.
And a goalless draw is kind of just one of those days you get, and you just got to remember that when you get rewarded with a 4-3 barn burner. But
Yeah.
we've got a good relationship. You may or may not recall, I was one of Don Garber's three direct reports
Yeah.
at MLS, and so got a really great relationship with Don and a number of people in the league office down there, and we're doing more things with MLSE, and talking with Axel about some things, and so again, we see MLS, they're on the same journey as us. They are a lot older than we are. But again, it's about soccer, and the thing is that they wake up every day and they're governed out of a different country in a league office run out of New York, and it's hard for them. It's hard for them in a lot of cases. You just look at the economics of that league and
Oh, yeah.
the spending of the LA teams in Miami and San Diego and Seattle and Atlanta, and it's hard when their expenses are all in USD, and yet they're particularly in Vancouver, in Montreal, their revenues in small markets relative to their competition are the revenues are in Canadian dollars, which is 65 cents, 70 cents on the US dollars. It makes it really hard for them with these big spending teams. So um, I feel for them a lot of ways, in that they got to do everything perfectly, to be able to compete in that league.
Yeah. And the loony exchange rate just now also is like a killer for them. Last couple of things. Now,
Yeah,
everyone always talks to you about expansion. I know when
yeah,
you did an interview with Manuel Veth at Transfer Market back in
yeah,
February, you spoke about your hope was two teams in 26, two more in
mhm,
28, two more
mhm,
in 2030, which to me is sensible expansion. It's not
yeah.
going like overkill. Is that still on the cards? Is that still going according to plan? And I guess everyone,
Mm.
all the scuttlebutt is Kelowna is going to be one of those two teams in 26, which I'm sure you can't totally reveal. But when can we hear
Yeah.
stuff? When are we likely to hear stuff?
You're going to likely hear stuff in the next few months, would be my guess. If we're going to do something for 26, it has to be, because you need to give that market time to
Yeah.
sell tickets and stuff. We're having an internal debate right now, to be being perfectly candid, is 26 the best year to launch a team versus
Mm,
27? So are you better off, we can announce a team, but say it's going to kick a ball in 27, because 26 is going to be a weird year with the World Cup here.
yes.
We're going to have to maneuver our schedule around. We're
That
going
was
to,
going to be one of my
you know,
questions to you. Yes.
yeah, yeah. We have to be respectful of that event, and so we're going to have to do some unique things in 26 that we wouldn't have to do in 27, and we better, focusing on the existing teams and this incredible event, and then coming off of that, launching a couple teams in 27. So
Mm,
that's the debate that we're having right now. You mentioned Kelowna. We took our first ever CPL on tour event to Kelowna, regular season game between
yeah.
Cavalry and Vancouver FC. Largest crowd ever at the Apple Bowl for an event. And we're having
Another
really,
nil-nil draw.
yeah, yeah. And we're having really, really productive discussions with that city. We are going to announce on Wednesday a on tour market
Ah,
uh, this later this week that will be played in the first part of this season, which we're really, really excited about. So stay tuned for a Wednesday announcement of our next on tour city. And we're having very productive discussions. I've said this many times. We'll expand when we're ready.
mhm.
We have to have all the components: the facility, the right owner, the municipality that wants us, the great support from the soccer community, great support from the corporate community. And that's a hard puzzle to put together in Canada, particularly the facility one. And once we solve that problem, we will expand, and we need to expand. I believe in the next 8 years or so, we'll double the size of the league, 8 to 10.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, what you said there about next year, it's very valid because so many eyes are going to be on the World Cup. It's like, do you take away from a new team by launching?
Yeah.
But
That's the
then
discussion we're having.
Yeah, at the same time, there's a lot of excitement, so it's a chance in some markets to build, but it could get completely lost. And I mean, two last things to ask you. One was about how you capitalise on 2026, because MLS is going to suspend its schedule. Do you see yourself suspending, or do you see yourself looking at where the games are, where the free days are, and thinking, hey, we can put a game on here, like out here in Vancouver, Langley. Oh, there's not a game at BC Place that day, but there's lots of fans in town. Let's get a game on and try and get some of these fans from whatever country out to see the league.
Yeah, I think it's the latter there, and that we will continue to play during the World Cup. We're going to be very thoughtful and mindful about how we do it, because we understand that that we want to be respectful of CONCACAF and FIFA and Canada Soccer and all that. But when everybody is thinking about football, we want to be playing football. So if there's a Wednesday that there isn't anything going on during the tournament, why wouldn't we play? Why wouldn't we give people who are in town a dose of Canadian football, and we send them home with a jersey from one of our clubs? The other reality of Canada and not owning all of your venues is that we have a short season weather-wise. And so, if we shut down for that period, we don't have the luxury that the MLS has of owning almost all of its stadiums and be able to control scheduling. And so we have to work with some of our buildings where we're tenants, and that's going to be a fun puzzle to work out. But I suspect we're going to play during the World Cup, but we probably will slow the schedule down a little bit, would be my guess.
Yeah.
TBD. We want to be playing soccer when the eyes of the world are thinking about soccer in Canada.
Last thing, we touched on the schedule there. There's all these murmurs MLS is looking to change from an August to May schedule. I can't see how that works in certain markets, I've got to say. It certainly, I don't see how it could possibly work in Canada if you guys wanted to switch to the same kind of schedule. Is that ever likely to be on the cards for the CPL, or is that a non-starter?
I say never. And there's a lot of smart people at MLS taking a look at that right now and just determine whether that's the right thing for their business. And when you have markets like Florida and San Diego and LA, and you can do those sort of things.
Well, even here we have a roof, so that helps.
Yeah, exactly. I said a little harder up here unless you do have a roof like you do in BC Place. But I can tell you, it was miserable watching a game in Toronto this past weekend. And if you're doing that in January or February, which they may not, they may figure out a way that TFC is on the road, or they do Leagues Cup or something during that window. But they're very smart, and they'll sort it out. It sounds like that's what they're going to do, based on everything that I'm hearing in the media. But from our perspective, until we expand our league and until we get more control over our buildings and schedule, it would be a very challenging thing for us to do. And in places like Calgary, you're not going to be able to play games in the middle of winter unless you got a dome.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I've mixed feelings on it. I miss my Christmas and Boxing Day games from being back in Scotland. They were always a lot of fun. But at the same time, I don't miss freezing my ass off at matches as I did. My team play right by the water, and it's like, it's not good. Anyway, thank you. Thank you for all your time today, Mark. I didn't even ask you about VAR and VAR Light like I usually do, because I would imagine if that was happening, it would have happened by now. But thank you for your time. Good luck for year 7. And
thank you.
Hopefully the league just continues to grow, get more eyeballs on it, and we just all get out and support Canadian soccer.
You bet. We appreciate what you guys do and the voice that you have in the marketplace. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to talk about our league. It's made in Canada. It's played in Canada. From coast to coast, and something that all Canadians should be very, very proud of.
Hear, hear. CPL Commissioner Mark Noonan there, and some interesting stuff covered. We did that interview on Monday morning, and those of you that are our extra subscribers will have got that early to have a listen to on Monday evening. The rest of you now hearing it for the first time on the main show, let us know your thoughts about what Mark said there. Expansion, clearly one of the big talking points in the league just now. As mentioned, when Mark had done an interview earlier this year with Manuel Veth on Transfer Market, he said the plan was 2 teams in 26, 2 in 28, 2 in 30. But that expansion now might get pushed back till 2027. And I can see both sides as to why. I mean, you want the league to grow as quick as you can. You want to get stable and successful teams into the league. Try and capitalise on that World Cup of 2026. But would a team getting launched next year with everything that's going on with the World Cup maybe get a little bit lost in the shuffle? If it means it has more time for these teams to get ready, really hit the ground running, then I don't see anything wrong with waiting until 2027. We've seen teams rushed before. Even Vancouver FC, who had a bit of a longer lead up, still struggled to get all their ducks in a row, especially when it came to stadium. And stadiums, infrastructure, that is a key to the growth of the league. I'm disappointed that we're not going to see as much of a maybe legacy from the World Cup next year throughout Canada, at least how it's looking just now anyway, in terms of new stadiums and new facilities for future CPL teams. So it's certainly a lot to think about for the CPL board. The league does seem to be in quite a healthy state though, moving into their 7th season. Getting these games, as we've talked about in the show before, on TSN, absolutely massive for the league in terms of growing it, getting more eyeballs on it. I mean, it's always said, if you can't see it, you can't be it. And that was in terms of players coming through of, well, if I can't see that there's a domestic league in Canada, how can I want to be a footballer because I'm going to have to move overseas? And that's not for everyone. Some folk don't want to move to another country, especially in these troubled times around the world. And the women's side as well, it's like there's not been a professional league here, so it's hard for female players coming through to feel that they can be professional footballers. But if you flip that to off the pitch, if you can't see the league in a more accessible way, then you don't know that the teams exist. You don't know how good the football is in the league, and you're not going to go out and support these teams. And we've talked before, there's people in the lower mainland that don't know that there is a CPL team out in Langley. And we won't get into all the, well, maybe if they called it something to do with the Langley neighbourhood, that would get more fans in. That is a valid argument, but you've got to be honest and say that there's a big bulk of people south of the river that won't travel up to Langley for games. And it is how all these CPL teams can capitalise on the World Cup being here. And it's big for Vancouver FC and Pacific FC here in BC. The Ontario teams as well, because that is where you're going to have a big influx of supporters from around the world as the eyes of the world on Canada, America and Mexico for the World Cup in 2026. But that is all to come. That's discussions to have down the line. Let us know what you thought of what Mark said in that interview. The CPL announced some updates on Tuesday in regards to roster rules and regulations and competition guidelines for the 2025 season. One of those is that the salary cap is being increased to just shy of 1.3 million Canadian dollars. Another big change as well, that as of this year, the CPL's domestic player rules have expanded to include any player who has lived in Canada for 3+ years or has been on a regular CPL standard contract for over 3 seasons now. Those players will now count as domestics. some players that will affect throughout the league here in Vancouver. Alejandro Diaz at Vancouver FC. You've got the likes of Tobias Warszewski at reigning CPL champs Cavalry. Alexander Ashiniotti Jonsson at Forge. And there'll be more of those players to come in future seasons as well. And that's important, I guess, for the growth of the league in one sense and attracting better players from overseas. But I mean, ultimately, you still want this to be a league filled with domestic players, which it is. And teams will continue to be limited to having just 7 international players on its main roster. And teams will also be required to start each game still with at least 6 domestic players. So not too many changes there. But I'm excited for the season to get underway. It's year 7 of the CPL. And the rest of this episode, we're going to have a preview of the 8 teams in the CPL this year. We'll also bring you our second feature interview in the next part with one of the returning players to the league, former Whitecap Marco Bustos, who is back wearing the purple of Pacific FC. And we're going to preview Pacific FC and hear from Marco in the next part. And we'll be back with that after the first of 2 Britpop songs in this episode.
Hi, I'm Mark Noonan. I'm the commissioner of the Canadian Premier League, and you're listening to the AFTN podcast.
Monday took a ride down to the coast. Listen to the sounds I love the most. Said goodbye to the optimist. He was drowning. Cleo, I think your head is finally gone. You're so fired up, you don't know left from wrong. Said goodbye to the optimist. He was drowning. All the things that I try never work. I only want you. All the things that I try never work. I only want you. When you're gone, I miss you too much. In this void, there's no one to trust. I don't know just what is left. I don't know just what is left.
Welcome back to the AFTN Soccer Show on CITR Radio 101.9 FM. And kicking off this part, it's another one of our Britpop songs as we continue to pay tribute and recognise 30 years of Britpop. Still, for me, one of the best musical periods, especially in my lifetime. A lot of happy memories from the 90s and the Britpop era. And if you're a new listener, what we've been doing is we've been playing at least one Britpop song towards the end of last year, all through this year, just to pay tribute to what is the 30th anniversary of that genre. And as I've said before, sometimes it'll be bands that you know, sometimes it'll be bands that you've maybe just not heard of, especially over here in North America. I think this might be one of those bands. It's a band from Cheltenham in England. They're called Nylon Bombers, and that is their debut single that was released on March 25th, 1995, entering the UK indie charts this week 30 years ago. This song is called Cleo, and it's one of 4 singles released by the band. They also released 2 albums, and I think their best single, their best known single, was released in 1996. It's a song called Superstar. Has a slight football connection as well, because it does mention Georgie Best in it. And I think that is their best single, but Cleo, as you heard there, is probably their second best one, in my opinion. So you can check out the band Nylon Bombers, that's Nilon. And we've got another Britpop song to kick off the next part for you as well. But we're going to get back to the CPL chat now, and we're going to kick off our CPL previews and also bring you our second feature interview in this part as we break down the 8 teams, the runners and riders in the CPL for the 2025 season. And I'll welcome Zach into the show now for these final 2 parts to do just that. And we're going to do this by looking at the teams from west to east, because we all know the West Coast is the best coast. And of course, then, in that case, we have to start with the best team in BC, and that is Pacific FC out of Vancouver Island. I think they're going to be a fun team to watch this year. Big turnover of players. If you listened to the last episode 663 of the AFTN Soccer Show, you'll have heard our chat with Pacific head coach James Merriman. 16 players out, including some stars like Thomas Melur-Guijure, Kunle Dadaluk, Moses Dyer, and goalkeeper Emil Gazdorf, who headed to the MLS and to CF Montreal. 16 players in, though, including Max Anker on loan from the Whitecaps for Between the Sticks, the man battling it out with Sean Melvin for the number 1 jersey. Now that Gazdorf has moved on, they also added experienced CPLers and former Pacific players and championship winners, Marco Bustos, who we will hear from shortly, Caden Chung, who has come back to the club after a spell with Vancouver FC. They also added Aidan Daniels from Halifax Wanderers, and a slew of other interesting additions as well. So what we're going to do for these previews for the 8 teams, we'll kind of break down the ins and outs, as I just did there for Pacific, and then we'll do it as 3 words to kind of sum up our thoughts of the team for 2025, pose 3 questions for each team, and have a bold prediction at the end. So for me, the 3 words I'm going to use for Pacific FC's 2025 season: competitive once again. And I picked those words after their struggles last year, where they just scraped into the playoffs. It went really down to the wire. They went in 5th, got bounced off at the first time at Askin in the first playoff game. But this year, I think it's going to be a more comfortable clinching of the playoff spot for them. And the roster that James Merriman has put together certainly looks more competitive maybe than the one we saw last year, if they can stay injury-free and if they can score goals as well. So my 3 words were competitive once again. And just to clarify, I'm in no way saying they were competitive last season, but trying to get back to the old days, the glory days, that championship winning team and the other seasons that they did well and got to championship games. What would your 3 words be to sum up Pacific just now? And don't swear.
That'll be so difficult. This is probably too simplistic, but I'm going to say all on Bustos. I think it really will, their season, I think, really hinges on how he is able to reacclimatize to the league and get stuck in and get to work and prove all the things that he's learned overseas, both as a player, as a professional, as a leader in a team, all those kinds of things. And I think it really is, as he goes, so Pacific will go. They've had significant departures, he's the most significant incoming player. For me, obviously, a player like Caden Chung is a massive addition as well, and Max Anker is huge for them. But I think Bustos obviously is the shiny one, the one that stands out. And if he either fails to perform or or struggles with injury or whatever, that could really, really, really hurt them.
Yeah. And little teaser for what we're about to hear from Bustos later in this part. Like the spell overseas in Sweden has done him the world of good. He seems mature as a person, as a player. He's looking at the game differently. But I think that's a very, very good 3-word selection. A lot does hang on him. The 3 questions that we'll chat about for Pacific, and obviously we're going to talk a lot more about all these teams as the season goes on. Where will the goals come from? I still feel they need an out-and-out striker. Josh Herd seems to have been playing up front in a lot of the pre-season friendlies. Bustos has been pushed up as well. Dario's been more out wide. And we saw last year that Dario struggled until Moses Dyer came in, and then they just clicked.
He finished the year incredibly well.
Yeah.
And they need to pick up where he left off.
But you've had, 5 months in between that? It's like way to make someone go cold. That's the horrible thing about the long off season in this league.
And as much as I don't want to talk about Moses Dyer, did you see the goal?
I saw he scored the 2 goals over in Ireland. Wow.
I only saw the volley.
They were both good, but yeah, the volley
or
one,
whatever.
yeah, we know he's got that in a locker. It's like balancing what he brings to the pitch with what happens off the pitch, and just keeping everything harmonious. And I mean, he'll thrive in the Irish League, I'm pretty sure. But I right now, and I said this to James in our chat in the last show, that's my big concern for them, is where the goals are going to come from. And in our chat in the last show, James had said there was going to be one more addition to the team that was announced on Wednesday. And it is a forward, 23-year-old Jan Tuali, described in the press release as an explosive forward. He was playing with CS Saint Laurent before, and it was on that team that did well in the Canadian Championship last year. So he joins the forward ranks. So I guess we'll have to see what he is going to bring to the team. I mean, the other one, like we touched on, what impact will Marco Bustos have upon his return? And it's like goals are expected of him as well, and assists. Now, he didn't bang them in over in Sweden, and obviously it's higher level league. I mean, again, a sneak peek of what Marco's going to say. Sweden's not the top league over in Scandinavia either.
No, I think the correct way to describe it would be a more established league. It's probably right.
I mean, the Danish league's your top league, and then probably Sweden after that. He did well, but he wasn't banging the goals in. And unfortunately for Pacific, they need someone to be scoring. Although, the flip side of that is the other end of the park. We saw how well they started last year. And defensively, like TSS were the only team to score against them for something like the first 5 or 6 weeks, it kind of felt. And then tying in that injury.
Yeah, but tying in with the goals too, a significant thing is they've had defenders in the past who scored. A couple years ago, they lost Didic, who scores a bunch of goals for them. This year, they've lost TMG, who scored a bunch of goals for them. And
as good as Caden Chung is, he's not a goal scorer.
No, and Endom like?
Well, yeah, Endom. James said in the chat in the last show, they've targeted him being back in the squad for this first game this weekend, and he's been doing practices and he's getting more involved now. He's not been a non-contact player in training, but they just have to make sure that he's ready for the physicality of the CPL.
So he's not starting
long season.
Yeah,
he's definitely not going to start the first game. If he's in the 18, he might get some minutes. I think you were looking week 2, week 3. You don't want a player that is as important as that to break down. It's like the Whitecaps with Ryan Gauld, what we talked in the last show. You don't rush these guys back.
No, and they brought him in essentially, I think, to replace Didic, right? And then he got the massive injury really early. So that's going to be interesting to see how long it takes him to be able to make an impact.
Yeah. And I mean, my last question, who will be the number one? I think Sean Melvin and Max Anker will split a lot of the time. I see Max Anker taking over as the main starter as the season progresses.
I know Sean. I don't know Max at all. I know Sean, so I hope Sean does get to play. But it's hard to see. I mean, I wonder, off the record, we should talk to James about the language and the expectations behind a move like this. Like just in general.
Yes.
Not necessarily even about Max as an individual. Like what are the actual expectations, right? Because you got,
I
if
always
you're the
wondered that
Whitecaps,
with
you're like,
loans. Yeah.
yeah, we want this guy to like guarantee a minimum, whatever, 75%
Well,
of the
yeah,
starts or
because like
something.
right now he's starting every second game, or he would be starting every second game with WFC2,
Yeah.
at least.
Yeah. So Sean obviously could show his experience and his quality and win out the job, but you got to think in the long run that Max is going to be able to make a play to play for it as well. Also, though, like you said, Merriman has been known in the past to be happy to use the tandem and go back and forth.
There's a lot of travel. There's 2 game weeks. There's Canadian
Yeah.
Championship.
I think they might have the strongest tandem.
I think they do. Like I was looking around that, and I've got all the rosters up here on the screen, and it's like, no, they definitely do. And there's a couple of teams we're going to talk about. That's one of my questions is about the goalkeeping.
And only because Nico retired. Otherwise, Vancouver would still have the most experience.
Nico never played. That's a hell of a backup.
Yeah.
And you've gone from that to a 16-year-old who I've heard great things about, but we'll touch on that in the next part. But we mentioned Marco Bustos there, so I think we'll bring you our second feature interview now. I got a chance to chat with Marco last week about his return to the CPL, his return to the old stomping grounds of Pacific, his hopes for the season, and a lot more. So stick the kettle on again, grab another biscuit of choice because you're worth it, and enjoy our chat with Marco Bustos. So delighted to welcome back to the show. It's been a while since we spoke. It's a man we've known for many, many years here at AFTN. Welcome, Marco Bustos.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. I know we've known each other for a long time. And like I said, I always have a lot of time for you guys.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, just looking at you, you look different. It's like, I don't know, because like 28 now, I never picture people aging. So when I look at folks' ages before I speak to them that I've known for a while, it's like, I can't believe you're that age. I can't believe Sam's the age that he is. Callum Irvin, all these guys, I just never have you aging. But like, you look different. You look really happy.
I am very happy.
That's
I'm back on the island, back at Pacific. Super happy with that. I think it's the league is growing, and I'm coming in with the league having more competition now. I think better players have entered the league. The Canadian growns have gone better, have improved, and I think it's a good time to be back. And also newly engaged, so that also puts a smile on my face. And
congratulations.
Yeah. So it's like you said, it goes back to the age. We're all getting older, and I mean we're not getting younger, so this is just part of life.
Yeah, I mean, does it feel like an age ago that you were at the Whitecaps? Because like it does to me. It's like you've done so much since then.
Yeah, it feels like a long time, thinking back. And I still try to watch as many games as I can. I'm still a fan in the background. Watching and seeing now recently the success that they're having in the beginning of the season.
Yeah.
It's nice to see, because it is a big club with a lot of history, and a club that deserves to be doing well. And it's nice to see, and also see familiar faces that I've played with. Familiar faces that I've played with that are also doing well. And a lot of people ask me, do you watch footy? Do you watch football? And to be honest, the most football I watch is MLS, because almost in every team I know someone, and that brings me joy.
Yeah. And I mean, you've done a lot since you've left it as well. Like you've won a championship with Pacific. You've played in Mexico. You've played in Sweden. You're back here now. Was it always in the back of your mind to come back to Canada at some point and be back in the CPL?
Of course. I think it's like I said, it's a growing league. Since I left, and in the time it's been to coming back, it's I think it's the period where it's grown the most, and better players have come into the league. And now with the World Cup coming next year, I think it's a big year for the CPL, and I believe a lot of eyes in the league. And I'm just happy to be here, happy to be part of it, and yeah, just super excited.
Well, I mean, you talk about eyes on the league. You've got now, they've just announced 4, but my understanding is it's going to be more. So you're going to have games on TSN, which never happened, should have happened for years. And you guys are one of the games as well. And it's a chance to show light or showcase Starlight and what it can be and what the fans can be. So, I mean, that must be exciting as well, because for as good as One Soccer has done, it hasn't had the eyeballs on the league. But as you say, you're going to get that now.
Yeah, it's super important. Like you said, you know, it's something that should have happened. But I think with, you know, bringing a product like the CPL and not having any historical background, I think that plays a part in the, you know, the broadcasting and who wants to pick up the games. And, you know, I'm not a businessman. I'm just a football player and a football fan. But to get the most eyes on the league, you need to have it, you know, nationally broadcasted.
Yeah.
Whether it's, I don't know, just the average family watching TSN, for example, and maybe don't know anything about the CPL, but you know, they have it on in the background and think, oh wow, this is actually good quality soccer, and oh, I'm interested. Maybe I'll go to the next home game, or you know, whatever it is. I think it's just important to get it out there more, and you know, it's the biggest sports broadcaster in Canada, so that's definitely an important step for the organization.
Yeah, I mean, I've spoken to folk and they didn't even know there's CPL teams, and like obviously we've got another one in BC now, and
Yeah.
there's a lot of folk don't know that team exists, and hopefully this will help with all of that. And I mean that's an exciting thing for you, because it's like you've now got a BC derby to look forward to, and there's a lot of guys you've known and played with for many years. There's guys you've won the championship with that you're going to be going up against. So I mean, you must be looking forward to that and those 4 games.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's good for the league, you know, when you have these local derbies, and then obviously you have you know, a lot of old teammates. I've gotten tons of messages from just old fans and old people just around the soccer community in Vancouver that are looking forward to come and watching me play there, which is nice. You know, I had a lot of people that I've crossed paths with but haven't maybe seen in who knows, 10 to 8 years, you know, so it's it'll be exciting to go there and see a lot of familiar faces for sure.
I mean, coming back, I'm sure there was a few teams that had an interest in you. Like, was Pacific always going to be your number one choice?
Always. Yeah, that's what I always said. You know, if I came back to the league, it was going to be at Pacific. It for me just made the most sense, where I felt the most comfortable. And I didn't want to be this guy in the league that's played for multiple different teams.
Yeah.
I think, you know, with the character that I have and knowing myself and my football quality and what I can bring, I think what suits me the best is Pacific. And, you know, I know the coach very well. I know the owners really well. So just it made the most sense, and always will make the most sense for me.
I know that 2021 season was a joyous one, but also a frustrating one for you because of the knee injury. Like, you missed the Whitecaps game, you missed the championship final. But do you look back on that season as like one of the happiest seasons of your career, or is there still a little bit of frustration there that you had to miss some of those games?
Oh, for sure, that was one of my happiest. You know, getting to work with Pa again was fun. You know, us being teammates and of course friends, and him pushing me to reach a level of my game that I hadn't reached yet. I think that season allowed me to mature as a football player, but also a human. And I still have more levels. You know, I feel the most mature today than I've ever felt. You know, besides obviously being older in age. But on the football pitch, I feel very comfortable right now. I've learned a ton in Sweden, just football and life and everything. You know what it takes, and I've always lived on, hard work, that I believe is what got me to where I am today. But I think just this football IQ and understanding a different style of football there in Sweden, a higher football IQ. Just these little things help so much in the little details. And I think in these first 6 weeks that I've been back in Victoria, back with Pacific, I think I've been able to show that and lead by example. And yeah, I think it's an important thing just to kind of bring everyone together. And I'm not this leader that's super vocal, and might have to try to work on that for sure. But I've always been a leader by example, and I think that brings the best out of my teammates and, of course, myself.
I was going to say to you, like, travel obviously helps folk mature, and it really helps broaden the mind. It's an old cliche, but I mean, it's true. And like, we've had guys and spoken to guys, like even here at the Whitecaps just now, Jaden Nelson went off to Scandinavia, learned so much football IQ, and he's come back a better player into MLS than he was when he went away. So, I mean, Europe was obviously a dream for so many young Canadians coming through, especially when there wasn't the CPL for years. How did the Swedish move come about? Because a lot of Canadians seem to end up in Scandinavia.
Yeah, I think it's you have like also being there in Scandinavia now for two years and a bit, is like you have Denmark, which is kind of the top tier there. Then you have Sweden and Norway kind of battling out for second, and then you got Finland that's a little bit underneath in at a we're talking football quality.
Yeah.
But for me, it was the season ended for me in Pacific, and I ran out of contract, and obviously there were contract extension talks, and talking with other teams in the league, other teams around Europe. And for me, I just felt like I wanted to try something different. I wanted to, if there was a chance to go to Europe, I wanted to take it. And this opportunity popped up. It happened really quick, actually. Around just before Christmas, an offer came in. I took, I think, I don't know, maybe 2 days to think about it, and I just said, let's do it. And it kind of just happened super quick. And then I was off to Sweden, and I didn't go to the biggest club.
Yeah.
It was a small club that went up 4 tiers in 5 years.
Oh, wow.
Small city.
Yeah, I had to look where it was, because I before we chatted, I was like, where is it? It's pretty central.
Yeah.
For a guy that's been used to living by the coast. But I mean, it looked lovely. It's by a lake. It looked a lovely little place.
Yeah, it's a small place. I think 25,000 people living there. Small relative to Canada.
Yeah.
Canadian cities. But yeah, it was like a cozy place. Then the footy was super, super cool, because you have I had some really intelligent coaches. I think when you talk about the game at a more deeper, detailed level tactically, I felt that I was behind. When I got there, I was, oh wow, I didn't know that. Oh, that's new. That's new. And just understanding a different style of coaching. You have, in my time there, I had 3 different coaches, and I learned from different things from all 3. And that's part of, growing as a football player, and growing as a human. And then obviously you had the games where you play the big teams, Malmo, Hammarby, Djurgården, AIK. You have these games, and there's 30,000-40,000 people in the stands, and that's super different to the football culture here in Canada, where you're in front of 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 people. It's just like, yeah, just that different football culture, like I said. And when you're walking out to the pitch and you see 30,000-40,000 people, it's just like a surreal kind of moment. That these moments is why you play football.
Yeah, I looked at, because when you first went, I think so many folk were following to see how you were doing, how the team was doing. So that first season, I mean, you were close to even getting into Europe, which would have been
Yeah,
Crazy. Really,
that was like, yeah, that was big for the club. The
yeah.
club just being a year and a half in the first time in the top tier. And then, yeah, we finished fifth place, I think 4 points behind the Conference League qualifying.
Yeah, that would have been amazing.
Yeah, super cool. And then the following year, almost getting relegated, being
Yeah,
in,
because I was going to say you got to experience like being in a relegation battle, which anyone from Europe, if like unless you're a follower of a big team, most people are going to be in a promotion relegation battle with their teams at some point.
yeah.
And there's nothing like it. The adrenaline that goes through you, and you survived it as well.
Oh yeah, completely different feeling. Something that here in North America you don't see that. You don't feel that extra pressure. It's a little bit different. When you speak about MLS or CPL, when you finish last place, there's really what's the consequence? There's
Yeah,
no real like that fear factor. And I think with, understanding, the club and, where the club is at, not a club with tons of money. And then if you get relegated, people are losing money, their contracts are getting cut in half. Staff is getting cut.
yeah,
It's like then you have to worry about the budget because now you're playing in second league and you don't get the TV money as you would have in the first division and so many things. So it was a big deal for the club and every training we could feel the tension and it's real, something that I'd never felt before, like I said. And then, being actually a big part of those two qualifying games was cool and was big. And I had left, I'd left my mark in those games. And really, those were the two most important games that we got to play in my time there. Like the two games that felt like, wow, these are the most two important games in the last 2 years for this club. And being part of that was big and leaving on a high. Obviously we finished just able to stay in Allsvenskan top tier, but it was definitely a big accomplishment and one that I'm proud of also.
well, that's good. And it's like just hearing you speaking so passionately about it as well. You can tell you enjoyed your football, and like I said at the start, you look a different person, and like you genuinely do. Like talking to you, you can see you've matured as a person. I'm not saying you were immature before, but it's like, obviously I've known you since you were, 14, 15. So it's like,
Yeah.
I've seen you grow up on the pitch, and it's like you're clearly enjoying your football now. And I know it's not always been that.
Yeah.
When I spoke to you when you were at Valor, that wasn't the happiest time for you. And
Yeah.
then you got a new lease of life at Pacific. And I think a lot of folk here felt you didn't get a good shake at the Whitecaps and you weren't set up to succeed. Whereas the Marco Bustos from 2017, if you transported that person to the current Jesper Sorensen team, you'd be set up to succeed because you've got other players around you that's going to bring the best out of you and not just suddenly throw you into a position that you've not played. So I think a lot's changed, and like now you've come back and you're the experienced guy, you're the leader, as you spoke about. When you were in the league before, you were lighting it up on the wing. We saw you as a 10. Looking at some of the lineups on the Discord chat from the Pacific fans, you look to have been playing a kind of 10 role for pre-season. Is that what you think your role's going to be with Pacific this year, or are you kind of given a free role?
I think like, speaking with the coaching staff and, with the pieces that we have, I think you'll see me in both, from the right or in the 10. But everyone who knows me well is, if I'm on the right, I'm not pinned to the line. I kind of have that freedom to come inside and get in the pockets. And, my game is having the ball at my feet. If you're asking me to run in behind 10 times a game, I'm not going to be the best guy to do that. For me to be able to dictate the game and put my stamp in the game or to make my teammates better, I think, I need the ball at my feet, and that's me coming in the pockets and finding the ball, getting on the half turn, and just combining. That's my game. I've been the same since since I was 16, 17 years old, and I'm still the same player, obviously with a little bit better, the little details, the tactical side. That's grown a lot in my game and my work rate. But yeah, I think you'll see me in both. Just depends on the opposition, depends on the games, depends on availability of the team, what players are in, out. There's so
Yeah.
many different factors, but in both I feel really comfortable. And of course, the way we play, I think it suits me. And you can put me in the 10, you can put me on the right wing. That's something I enjoy both.
And last year, Pacific were hit so bad with injuries. It was like crazy. And then found their groove towards the end, and like Dario and Moses Dyer really kind of struck up a connection. And then Moses moves on. But from everything I've been hearing, Josh Haird's been flying in pre-season. And like looking at some of the lineups, how do you feel it's clicking with like you, Josh, Dario in those front positions?
Yeah, I think it's been good. I think it takes time, with all teammates, all teams, all teams in the first 2 months all over the world. We had a big turnover of players here.
Yeah.
And that's super important to creating, how would you say, to creating balance, creating leadership roles, because I think what's important is that everyone needs to find a role. And that's up to us as teammates and as coaches to help instill and help everyone know that what the role is in the team, in the club, and that I think is the most important to have success on the pitch. That everyone understands their role. People's role change throughout the season. Whoever starts this first game, for example, on April 5th, it's not going to be the same team that's finishing the season at the end. It's always like that, and that's how football is. Things change. People got to stay ready. I think it shows who has been successful in the league, and the teams that have won. I think if you look back, it's the teams that have been the most together and the most consistent. Because in this league, anyone can beat anybody.
Mm-hmm.
I think what the most important thing to establish a winning culture is to be consistent. And that you have to be more than 11 players. You need at least, 16, 17 guys chomping at the bit every training session, every opportunity they get, every game. And that's what instills a winning culture. So for me, it's, with all the players here, I'm as a person trying to build connections on a personal level with everybody, because I think that's important, because we are humans before football players. And I think that's an important way to gain respect from everybody and respecting each other as teammates.
Yeah.
And in the end, that's what's going to allow us to be successful and fight for each other on the pitch.
And you know a few of the guys from before, and like, did you play with Dario in the academy days, or he was a year younger than you? I don't know if you ever played together.
Yeah, we did. He would come up and play with us. And we were laughing about it the other day that, remember how many goals we scored together?
Yeah, I remember that. Like, I remember watching you at a game at SFU, that it was like the other team weren't there. It was clearly not testing enough for you. You were just like waltzing through them. When I spoke to Dario last year, I didn't speak to him before the season started, and then I said, I'll speak to you after you get your first goal. And then we joked because I never got to speak to him till about August or September, the way it worked out. So after that, it's like he went on a tear. So last thing, and then I'll let you go. I'm excited for what the team can be this year. I'm unashamedly, of the two BC teams, Pacific's the team I cheer on for a number of reasons, but also because it was the first team in the league, and I just love what James has built there and the players that he brings in. And just, as you say, it feels like good team camaraderie. You've got Max Anchor now. I spoke to Max on Friday. Great guy to have battling it out with Sean at the back. When you signed, you did an interview with Charlie on the CPL site, and you said it was important for you to come back to a team that was competitive. This team certainly looks like that, and I'm not going to get you to make any bold claims as to what's going to happen this year, but it looks a very positive year. I don't think it's going to be a year like last year where you're just trying to scrape in to the last playoff place.
Yeah, I think it looks so far really good. I think we are still a ways away from our best. I think that comes through the season also. You know, the first 5 games of the season, how do we instill that we are a competitive team? That we are, you know, when you play us and when you come to Starlight, that you're already losing by a goal because of the camaraderie we have, how hard it is to win here. I think that's something that the team has, I don't want to say lost, but, you know, that feeling where when you play at home, it's really tough to get 3 points here. And that's what we have to instill as a club, as a fan base, as players, that this is not a place where Calgary, Forge, Valor are going to come here and take points or 3 points to say. You know, I'm not saying that we're going to go this season undefeated, but I think we have a good chance to do something really good this season.
Well, let's hope so. I look forward to get over to a few games this year. It's been lovely to catch up with you again. Thank you for your time. I'm glad you're back here, glad you're back with Pacific, and I can't wait to see you in the pitch.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure, and I hope to see you soon.
We're gonna celebrate a goal tonight. Singing Ayo. Let's go, Marco. Yeah, Marco Bustos there. That was
that's one of the best songs you've ever come up with.
Yeah, it's not hard. I haven't come up with many. Cowden Family, East Fife. Award-winning song. Voted the best song in Scotland in 2000. So there was that. Always liked to see, and we had our cartoon strip that was banned, and, well, it wasn't banned. They tried to ban it. They tried to ban me. I was like cancel culture before cancel culture existed through our cartoon strip.
There you go.
Marco Bustos there. Haven't done any cartoons for him. And yeah, as we touched on, it'll be interesting to see the impact he has. Now, we're going to do a bold prediction for all these teams. Some of them will be a little bit tongue-in-cheek from me, I'm going to say that. And this is one of them. Kind of. It's what I'm hoping for. 12 points taken from the Derby games for Pacific. That's my bold prediction for Pacific. It's potentially 0 points taken from the Derby.
You haven't watched this Derby very closely over the 2 years, apparently.
It's different this year.
Yeah, well, it could be. Yeah, I was thinking about my bold prediction for them, and it's not really that bold. I was thinking more about placement in the table, and that went to kind of my overall table, which I know we're going to talk about later. Mm-hmm. I'll go Bustos top 3 in scoring in the league.
Oh, I mean, if that was the case,
that's bold.
High. Yeah, that's very
bold, right?
Yeah.
There you go.
Although in a couple of recent seasons, the top scorer hasn't quite, like, they've struggled to get to double digits. So, I mean, it's not beyond the realms of possibility.
No, I know if Steve were here, Steve would remind me of that. The time I chose, what was the guy who was at Portland? The big tall center.
Oh, yes.
Did they get him from Columbus or something? And he'd been banging in the goals. Then he came to Portland and couldn't hit the broadside of a barn.
Oh, I'd forgotten about that. I wanted to say it's Ibo Bisi, but it wasn't.
No, it's not him.
Oh,
not him.
But I know exactly who you mean. It's like, oh yeah, he's gonna be the Golden Boot winner, and he struggled. But that was good to see. That's our Pacific preview for the season. We're going to look at the other 7 teams now in the next part, and we'll be back with that after another Britpop song.
Hey, this is Mickey Cantav, and you're listening to the AFTN Show.
You grew up in the sticks, where you struggle to get your kicks. I was raised in the town, where the kicks keep you down. You want to take the fewest falls, so never take a chance on a jump. I'm drumming my head against the wall, because I know that you and using other people's blueprints. It doesn't mean you've given in, but I know that you have. I never see things eye to eye when I never see things eye to
Welcome back to the AFTN Soccer Show on CITR Radio 101.9 FM. And kicking off this part is the second of our Britpop songs in this episode as we honour the 30 years of Britpop. And it's from a band that I think I would class them as Britpop, but they did exist from before the Britpop era started. They were on the go from 1991 to 1995. English band Kingmaker, who hail from Kingston upon Hull, and that is a song that they released on April 3rd, 1995. It peaked the following week at number 33 in the UK charts, and it was the band's penultimate single release from the 11 that they brought out from 1991 to 1995. That was Kingmaker with You and I Will Never See Things Eye to Eye. The band is probably best known for their 1993 10 Years Asleep single, and that song there was taken from the band's third and final album, In the Best Possible Taste. Are they a Britpop band? You could argue yes, you could argue no. Britpop is a very broad church, to kind of put it in Zach parlance, but great band, great single, and I actually prefer that to their big hit 10 Years Asleep as well. Just love the vocals on it. They're a really good band. Check out the rest of their stuff. So the song there, You and I Will Never See Things Eye to Eye, and that can maybe be used as a phrase just now for one of the Vancouver FC players. Because we're going to kick off now our review of the other 7 teams, and we're going to start with the other BC team, Vancouver FC. Not seeing things eye to eye. The Vancouver FC player in question that I'm talking about here.
I thought you were talking about you and I.
Oh, well, we don't see things eye to eye with how well we want Vancouver FC to do. I think that's fair to say. But yes, what I'm getting to is friend of the show, in that Zach interviewed him last year. Friend of Fafa Pico, Haitian international, Mickey Cantave. But Mickey Cantave refused to show up to Vancouver FC pre-season. He's been at the last couple of Whitecaps games. Him and his girlfriend have been watching games from a suite. A couple of people were chatting to him, and he revealed, he has no plans to play for Vancouver FC again, which is unfortunate because I think we both have a lot of time for Mickey as a player, and I don't know if you can shed any light on this at all.
I mean, I can confirm what you said in terms of he didn't show up for preseason training, and no one's obviously seen him at any of the training stuff, or obviously the many preseason matches that there's been. And then I remember you messaged me being like, Mickey's in the box here at BC Place.
Yeah.
And my understanding is that I think both parties will be happy to move on from this.
Any player that doesn't want to be there, get rid. Because it just leads to bad vibes and the locker room and
So obviously, last year, aside from the results not going well in the final 3 quarters of the season, as Michael likes to point out, things off the pitch were not going well, right? So most of the people, I think, who were not a fit here have been moved on in one way, shape, or form. And for most of them, I think that's been a positive. Some of them, I think, who did move on, not all the people who moved on, I think, had issues or big issues. Mickey is someone, obviously, that Vancouver took his option, which is their right. And I think for the club's sake, hopefully, that if he is moved on in some way, that will be compensated in some way, shape, or form. And he'll find a new place, and Vancouver will be able to move on. Vancouver, we'll talk about this more in a second. Vancouver, you're right. It would not be good for him to be there because I don't think he's in the right, obviously does not have the right attitude or the right approach to be in there. And everything I've heard from players and people around the team is actually the culture is really good in the team right now.
Oh, yeah.
Everyone's
Like when you've
on the
got
same
these young
page
guys and a lot of first-time pros, the last thing you need is a veteran that is not wanting to be in that locker room.
or who's causing problems. Yeah. So the veterans who are there are excited about it. Obviously, you heard sort of parting shots from Rocco a few weeks ago. Like, I don't want to be at a club that is about developing young players. I want to be about winning, which again is really.
But then he
awkward
went to Valor.
Yeah, exactly. And he'd already been at Valor, and so he'd been in the bottom two for 4 years in a row. So what's the common denominator? Unfortunately, right? Like, and I don't say that as a dig at him, because I actually really like him, especially as a person. I think he still has a lot of potential as a footballer and has done good things. But anyway, that's aside. But yeah, I think the people who are there recognize where the club is going and are excited about that and want to be a part of that. And so it's going to be, I think, really, really interesting to see how it all plays out. And it would be nice to have an experienced player, but my understanding is there is still the potential for an exciting type player that would be not the exact same player as Mickey, but who would fill similar roles. Are they to sign and come in? And I think would probably move the needle in multiple ways more than Mickey would. So we'll see if that happens. We'll see how things play out.
I do wonder as well, like if you look at how Quintave was used last year, because we were a bit puzzled sometimes, like he was on the bench, he wasn't maybe getting the playing time you expected. So all that probably factors into it. It will be interesting to see if he lands in the CPL.
Yes.
Another swap deal with another disgruntled player at some other club, which isn't ideal, really. But sometimes it can light a fire under the player you get. Because it's like, I'm going to show this other club that they've made a mistake. Or does he move to pastures new outside of Canada? So, I mean, we won't go too much more into that. Let's get into the more meat and the potatoes, the preview, happier things to talk about. So for Vancouver, 14 players out. Soon to be 15, I guess, if Quintave moves on. Maybe 16 if TJ Tahid gets a move, which there's been rumours floating about really since the end of last season that he might get a move. 9 players in at the moment, and that I'm including Thomas Powell, who's come back on his U Sports deal. Only Tern Campbell and Kunle Dadaluk bringing real experience from those players coming in. But of course, experience is how you want to kind of measure it as well. The rest of the additions they're fairly young. I mean, I've heard there's a bunch of young internationals that are also slated to come in. Usual Canadian issues of visas and various things. And I'd been told there's more than a couple, less than a slew. I guess that would be kind of a vague description, but there's a bunch of them meant to be coming in. Now, whether they'll be difference makers, whether they'll be young guys looking to try and break through, there's more players coming. But right now it does look a short-handed roster going into the start of the season.
Yeah, I think there's a little bit less experience and even a little bit less quality than they would have liked. And you're right. They've been hamstrung again by visa issues. So this was a significant thing that really derailed things in season 1.
Yeah.
Where there was an African center midfielder was supposed to come in, and that they just could never get them a visa. And so that's why Caden was put into center midfield that year.
Which hopefully for Whitecaps fans listening to this, see, it's not just the Whitecaps, it's a Canadian thing. It is not as easy to get visas as it has been in the US in the past. Obviously not so much now.
Yeah.
Canada won't fast track.
Yeah. Well, there's that. And then they also changed some of the rules, because before you used to be able to kind of get a player to go to the States and come into Canada, and that would, I think, speed things up or something. And they took that away as an option, or so. I don't speak immigration law. There's more issues than there used to be. And also where things are at right now in the world also I don't think helps anyone. And
well, at least the advantage though is they only have to get Canadian visas because they're only playing in Canada. Because some of the other issues with the Whitecaps in the past is they've had to get a US visa as well, and the likes of Ali Adnan couldn't get one.
Exactly. So there was a handful of players who did not make it to the preseason friendly in Bellingham this year. One player had literally forgot their passport had just expired like a day or two before the game. Obviously the 2 Mexicans could not go. And there was a couple other internationals where it was like, yeah, they can't cross the border, or they might not be able to come back or something, or they might not be able to cross the border.
Which has been an issue before for like teams coming up here to play Whitecaps Academy back in the day. It's like, look, if our guys cross the border, they're not getting back in the country.
Well, so much so that the Whitecaps Academy teams got the short end of the stick because they had to play much their home in Bellingham, right? Like that was poor form.
And that's one of the big disadvantages of being in a US league, but we won't go into all that just now.
Yeah, but so there were, let's say, in the region of a handful of players that there was hope for. I would say at least a couple of starting caliber type players, but I think they're working at alternatives both in the short term and potentially long, in case any of their hopefuls don't actually come through.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah.
And at least one of them would be an exciting proposition. So we'll see what happens. That's the thing. If it doesn't, I think that there's a good group there, and now it'll be how they've measured themselves against in preseason a bunch against different sides in different ways. It'll be now, okay, how do they do in an actual real competitive league game against their contemporaries? And then when there's adversity, whether that be in a result or injury or sending off or whatever, how do they respond collectively?
Well, they've lost Rocco Romeo, so the sending offs should be down.
Oh my. It is a CPL, you never know.
Well, my 3 words for Vancouver FC, I went with challenging season ahead. Because I think it will be, but it could be a surprising season ahead as well. Like, if these young guys mesh and like hit the ground running and live up to the potential, and they can do it on a consistent basis, Vancouver could be a surprise package this year.
Totally. If everyone plays at their level or above, then they could do very well. But that doesn't always happen that way, right? So it doesn't always work out that way. So it's going to be very interesting. My 3 words were football factory masterclass. So they've set out, year 1 was they just got a squad together. And we could talk about how that happened and why it happened another time. We've talked about it before. Year 2, the approach was let's try and engage our community more by bringing in people from the community more. That didn't work for a number of reasons. Again, we won't rehash all that right now. In the end of the last year, they were said, okay, the approach needs to be what we think which they were always trying to do at the same time, was let's bring in young players, help them to progress, and give them other opportunities. And so with these first 2 significant ones of obviously McDonnell and Cameron, those are the first 2 kind of flags in the ground for the club around the world. And I think you're going to see that continue. So TJ, you mentioned, there's every chance that this year or at the end of this year, he moves on to somewhere and is that 3rd player.
Do you think he goes before that, though? Like, now that he's been playing with Ghana, he had the trials over in Europe. There was murmurs that he could be another one on his way out. He
could. I just don't know my level of certainty that'll happen. Like, let's say before July 1st. I'm not sure how it'll happen that quickly, but definitely I think he will. And the Ghana thing, as disheartening on some level that is as a Canadian, it will just bring more eyeballs to him, more attention to him. And so it's great for him.
And who knows what teammates as well, because it's like
totally
you get a couple of Ghanaian under-20s coming to Vancouver.
Yeah. But this kid, Kevin Podgorny, he's very exciting.
He's your one to watch for the year?
No. Emmerich Fotzing. Those 2 are probably...
They're your 2 to watch for the year. Then.
Yeah. Emmerich Fotzing, I think he's best used in center midfield, but we've seen him at center back. We've seen him at wide in midfield. And for his age, he has just a calmness on the ball. He's already a good size to maintain possession under pressure.
He's the lad that came through Montreal Academy.
Yes. He is very enjoyable to watch. And then Kevin, who I've seen in maybe half the amount of games I've seen Emmerich, or whatever, 2/3 or whatever. He's an exciting player. Most of the games I've seen, he's come on in the second half or whatever. And I don't know if he's crazy fast or he's coming into situations and he has that burst or whatever, but he's got some pace about him. and he's usually playing wide, but he always has a nose for goal. Like he has a way to get in there in the right spot at the right time, and wants to shoot. He's a player who will, I think maybe there'll be a few times this year where people will be watching him, they're like, why is he shooting that? There's someone open he should be passing to. But he's like that kind of player who wants to shoot. And then the other player who I'll say, I mean, there's a few others who are younger, but the one who probably overall this preseason who's impressed me the most is, and you won't be surprised by this, but is Elijah Ba. He's gone away this offseason and prepared well for the season. I think he's probably in the best physical shape of his life, he's in the better physical shape than a year ago. And even where he was at last season, I think he has the full trust and confidence of his coach, which I think is very important. And so much
he has his head screwed on well as we learned from chatting to him last year.
Yeah. And the coach, I think, play him probably anywhere but goal and center back. He's probably seen him play fullback.
Did last year for
I've seen him play fullback. I've seen him play wide midfield.
He was up front,
up front, and through the middle. The other night in the unfortunate victory against your side, I think maybe I said it in our review, but I think he was basically in on every goal except for the free kick from Vasco. He scored the first. The second should have been his goal, but the referee blew the whistle and gave a penalty instead, but it should have been his goal. And then the third, he did all the hard work, and Kevin Podgorny popped up and smashed it into an empty net. Yeah, he is. I really hope he can stay fit and he can just have a real breakout season. And he's what now? I forget is he 21 now? He's young.
I'd say 21 is my guess. I'm pretty sure he was 20 last year.
So again, for him, there's potential. Maybe he's the guy. He's a player at the end of this season. He's done 2 years here. Maybe he moves on.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the two guys I'm really rooting for is Elijah and Matteo Campagna.
Campagna's another one.
Is he injured?
No, he's been back.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I knew he took a knock, so I was a bit worried he was going to miss time.
Preseason, he missed a little bit of time because he had taken a knock in a game. But yeah, no, he played last game. If I was predicting the starting 11 on opening day, he will be the right-sided center back.
Besides Enu?
I think Enu. Although Afshin has been doing a fun thing in second halves of some of these preseason games where he puts Allen at left back and gives Allen the green light to just bomb forward like he did, I think, in that Atletico Ottawa game, I think, left back at the end of last year.
And then who's been at centre back? David Norman?
David Norman, yeah.
Right.
And then obviously Kunling at right back.
Oh, of course, yeah.
That's also,
I think that is a really good addition for the team.
Yeah. But that meant that Paris was usually an odd player out in that. There's not as many players as I would want back there who are as experienced as you'd want.
Yeah.
But again, if they all stay healthy, I think there's good options and good variety there. Yeah.
Well, my 3 questions, which we'll just quickly kind of go through. Can this young team be competitive, or could they garner the lowest points total in CPL history in a 28-game season, which is currently 20 by Edmonton in 2022? We were talking before, and I said, I don't think that will happen. I see them being bottom, but I see them getting 26 to 30 points. But they could be a surprise package if they can string it together. But for me, consistency is the key. If they can be consistent, they could do things.
Yeah, I don't think I would be shocked if they were in that region that you talked there about 20 points. I'd be quite surprised.
I think they're playing all the young guys in every game, and all the experienced guys for whatever reason aren't able to play.
Yeah, but no, I don't. I see the upper echelon for the side probably at 4 or 5, and the low hopefully not below 6 or 7.
Oh, that's quite optimistic. I mean, you've got the top 2 scorers in CPL history, Alejandro Diaz, Tern Campbell, linking up once again. Is that enough to maybe overcome any midfield or defensive frailties or inexperience?
That's a fair question. My bigger question, actually, Michael, around that is not potential shortcomings or thinness in the midfield or in the back. It's more about the creativity for those 2 players. It's who's going to set them up.
Do you see them playing together, like for most of the games?
I mean, they've started, I think, every game that I was at, except for the Bellingham game, I think they started the game together. They didn't finish together, but they started together. I think very much the intention is to start them. I think Diaz has been kind of Diaz in preseason. He's popped up with a couple goals and been involved in play. And so there's been some really good team movement and team goals at times. But Taron was a little bit snake bitten in a couple of games where he I'm sure he went home and was like, I can't believe I didn't score a brace or at least a goal in that game. So
I said, like, when we first mentioned the rumour last year that I'd heard he was coming, I did question are his best days behind him. But I mean, this could give him a resurgence, and playing alongside someone like Diaz.
Yeah, they have great history together. It's not just that they're the two all-time leading scorers in the league, it's that they have a history working together. But my thing is, where's the creativity going to come from? Mm-hmm. Could that come from... Yeah, could it come from Ba and Vasco and Fotzing and the players through the middle, or wide, or is at least one of the players that they might bring in could be that creative spark that they need to kind of unleash those two players. So
what's the formation looking like? Is it 4-3-3, 4-4-2?
No, it's more like a 4-4-2. Because you have those guys up top. Things have tweaked a bit in the games, especially as they've made substitutions. So sometimes it's looked more 4-3-3 or 4-2-3-1-ish, especially when one of those two big guys has come off. But I think you'll see them starting the games at like 4-4-2. And that's where it's like, okay, then when you're doing that, okay, having Ba on the wing is good. Henry has played a ton on the wing. He started, I think, virtually every game.
I totally forgot about Henry.
Oh, and the other guy.
Fantastic with UBC.
Yeah, he's been really good.
I think he'll stick the whole season. I don't think he'll come back to UBC. I think he'll get the full deal.
And same with Mehdi. Mehdi was kind of, at the beginning, he was like, I didn't get to see him play because I think he was away doing exams or something. And then every game since then, he's been like, I think he's like a left-footed player who prefers to be in the middle. And so he's played with Vasco and he's played with Fotzing and looked good. He's another one who could play a role in being a creative kind of spark plug for the side as well. Yeah, it's where is the creativity going to come from?
Right, let's wrap up Vancouver FC with bold prediction. And I've got a tongue-in-cheek one, which, I mean, it could come true, that if there's a bad start to the season, Vanni Sartini will come in and take over as interim coach just to the end of the season to take everyone over. My proper bold prediction is Michael D'Agostino will take over as head coach, but possibly at the end of the season.
I guess my bold prediction is Vancouver FC will be in the post-season tournament at the end of the year. I guess another bold prediction.
Bolder than mine.
Another bold prediction could be second round of the Voyageurs Cup.
Hey, you'd take that though if you can get your first win and in a derby game.
That would be.
I'd still love to have been able to get over to that, but I will be flying to Winnipeg that day.
We went that way. The whole way. We didn't talk about Felipe or Callum. I'm looking forward to Callum again, standing on his head and being amazing. And I don't know if Felipe will see the pitch because Callum's not one to give up spots other than if he gets sick before a game. But I hope Felipe continues to grow. I've watched him play for the 19s over the course of the winter a number of times. And really promising and really encouraging. And Todd May's been his coach and speaks very highly of him. And excited for him to progress and for Callum to
within the Whitecaps as well. I've spoken quite highly of him, but there's so many goalkeeping talents there. So that's our Vancouver FC preview. Now that was long. Don't worry, the remaining 6 teams are not going to be as long. We knew that when we got started with VFC that this could go on. It's Zach's first love in Canada, club level. So for the rest, we'll rattle through these a little bit quicker. Next up, because we're moving west to east, Calgary. The defending champs, just 5 players out, including Charlie Trafford, who retired just this past week or so. Biggest loss on paper looks to be centre-back Dan Klopp. 6 players in, 2 from the Whitecaps, Jay Herdman making his loan move permanent, and talented fullback Mikhail Gerasimenkov going on loan from WFC2. My 3 words for Calgary, another strong season, which is nothing too outrageous there. What do you think your 3 words would be for Calgary?
I think this is going to tie into something else you want to talk about later, but will they repeat?
Yeah, which brings us to our first question. Can they repeat? Now, I mean, we'll give our quick, how we think 1 to 8 is going to go. I don't think they will repeat as North Star Cup champions, but I think they will win the regular season.
That's interesting.
They would be disappointed, but they'd take that because they're back in the Champions Cup then.
Yeah, I think Tommy's always wanting to add silverware, right? And yeah, he'd be happy. He'd prefer to add, I think, both this year. But we just want to talk about, can I talk about Charlie Trafford for a second?
Yeah, because I know he's
interesting.
someone that you have a lot of time for.
Yeah, well,
Mason more.
Mason, yeah, his cousin I know more. But it's interesting, 2 years in a row now that they've had players who've been significant players for them and then played in Champions Cup and then left the squad. So last year was the old diver there, Meyer Bevan. And that was different circumstances. And this year you have Charlie Trafford retiring. So I think it shows Tommy's ability to keep players for these big competitions and big opportunities, but also to work with them to solve difficult situations, right?
Yeah.
Charlie
it shows his man management, and also for like that early in the season to get your experienced guys out there. Or if in like Charlie's case, if you know he's hanging his boots up, look, go out with a bang. Go out in a big game.
Did he score against the?
Yeah,
I saw him score last year against us in Calgary. He's been such a great servant for them and a quality player. And yeah, he's at this moment where he wants to be a farmer full time. So why not?
Yeah, I mean, like, good luck to him.
But it just is to me that's a significant loss because of how where Tommy has used him and how kind of he's another kind of big leader, influential player like that in combination with Klopp being on as well.
Mm-hmm. I guess the other guy that could be considered the replacement for Charlie Trafford, the newest addition added on Wednesday, player we know very well here at AFTN, 24-year-old Michael Baldissimo, joining the Cavs after spending his time with the Whitecaps and San Jose in MLS. Very good addition for Tommy Wheeldon, and I think he's going to do very well for Cavalry in the CPL this season. Do you see them repeating?
I think they're in for a shout in the league. You have them top, right?
Yeah.
I think it's going to be really difficult. I think Forge is always going to be a problem when it comes to winning the league. The Shield is always going to be difficult. The Cup is always going to be more of a possibility for any side when it comes to trying to battle against Forge. But Forge also has chosen not to improve their goalkeeping situation, which I think is their really weakest link. And so it is another year where I think teams will be able to get something, do some damage against them, as we saw from Vancouver FC, especially away to Forge last year. But yeah, I think they're definitely a top three side for sure, the Cavs.
Yeah, it would be tough if they weren't. Who's helping Tobias Warszewski out with the goals? Because you look at that team, and if you just look at the forwards, there's Ali Musi, there's Nicholas Wallen, another German, Janan Chanda, an 18-year-old that's moved up from their under-21s, and Meyer Bevan is still listed on them, but we know he's not there. So it's like, I think Jay Herdman will chip in with some goals, Kermago will chip in with some, but is there enough there to support Warszewski, especially if he goes through a drought or if he was to pick up an injury, heaven forbid?
I think Toby can score more than even he did last year. And Musi also, I think, I wouldn't be so shocked to see him second leading scorer, but also you're right, having Jay Herdman for a full season could really shift things for them. Walling, the German, only got to see glimpses of him last year, and he wasn't bad for them or anything. I don't think he was quite as standout as I think maybe they were hoping. But
we touched on Jay Herdman there, and that's my third question. How will he develop this year? I know he had a tough one getting sent off down in Mexico, but I think he could really be a standout for the Cavs this year.
Sky's the limit for him might be too lofty a saying, but I think he has quite a bit of potential and can really thrive in this league and either make a name for himself in this league in a broader, in a longer term sense, or do what a number of players have done and use this as a meaningful springboard to what's next for him. I do want to say, it's a bit of an aside, I think for him, it is probably nice to have the stuff we talked about last episode kind of dealt with in terms of his dad. I think he is a professional and a quality dude, and he can, to some very high level, block that stuff out. But I think having it resolved and not lingering and not people asking, or even asking him, or him walking through a room with people wondering, like, oh, whatever. I think that's hopefully helpful for him on the mental side of things and helps him to kind of kick on and not have to deal with that. And hopefully there aren't, people who in the media side of things who maybe badger him about some of that stuff. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I know most of the stuff I heard, I think, was more off the record, but I know a few people, I think, on the record maybe would ask those kind of questions. You and I know people who would ask those kinds of questions.
Oh, yes. Well, it was interesting as well, because when I spoke to Jay after one of the WFC2 games, his mum had come down when she saw that I was speaking to him, and I think she was concerned, oh no, what's he going to ask? But I'm not going to put a young lad on the spot about something that's got nothing to do with him. So, yeah. Now, my bold prediction for the Cavs, I've already mentioned it, they'll win the regular season, but they will just miss out on the double.
My bold prediction for them is, I'll just say they make the Voyageurs Cup final.
And they have a chance. I do think we could see a CPL team. Like the way that Montreal and Toronto are at the moment, I think there's a good chance we can see a CPL team, at least one, in the Voyageurs Cup final. Well, who knows? Maybe we could have 3 CPL teams in the CONCACAF Champions Cup next year.
Oh, yeah. That'd be even better. Well, Toronto and Montreal are knocking each other out, right? In the Voyageurs Cup?
Yeah.
Right? That's already lined up, right?
Yeah. Crazy stuff. Right. Valor next. 12 players out, 9 players in. You look at some of this movement, and I mean, they've brought in some experience. That, like, they paid a fee for Chris Twardek from Ottawa.
Yeah.
Got Rocco Romeo in from Vancouver, Zachary Fernandez from Halifax. Miles Morgan from Whitecaps too is an interesting one. Now, he's played U20s and I think U23 as well for Canada. It's had a really strong start to WFC2 last year, then went away with Canada and then came back and just completely went off the boil and just didn't really have much of an impact. Now, they didn't have the worst goals for last year or the worst goals against, but they finished last despite some life late on. They made a bit of a run. Shan Handel and Swibble had 7 goals each, but they declined Swibble's option. For me, my 3 words are falling short again.
Mine is going to be challenging season ahead.
Hey, that's very good. I mean, my first question are where are the goals going to come from? Because you've got Hundle, but the only other forward that is listed as a forward is a 19-year-old. And you're like, ooh, I don't know where the goals are coming from. And
Why did they let Swibble go?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Because
I saw that.
Seems an odd one. Just declined his option. Maybe he wanted to go back to Australia?
He did some damage against Vancouver FC last year, unfortunately. But yeah, I don't think their gains are enough to move them off the bottom, honestly. And I say this with a ton of respect and appreciation for Phil DeSantos. I have all the time in the world for him. I greatly appreciate him. I appreciate his view of football and how he leads his team, and I have so much respect for him. I will be very surprised. I mean, one of the things, I think I messaged you when this happened. One of the surprising things was, they're just they chose to bring back Viscosi, the keeper, presumably as their number 1. And I was just like, that seemed weird to me. Like, I don't think he was great last year.
No.
I say that
they only have 2
as
goalkeepers on the book as well.
I say that as having seen him keep 2 clean sheets at Willoughby in goal straws, but in general, in watching him in the league, I didn't think he was really, really great. And Zachary Fernandez, I think, has kind of been an up and down player in CPL. He's had some really high highs and a few low lows. What are your thoughts on Fashinieri and his development?
I liked him when he was here in Vancouver, and then it didn't work out. Went to college. I thought he did well last year. He's gone from U Sports to full pro now, so I wish him well. The problem is he's likely to be in a partnership with Rocco Romeo, which, as we've seen in Vancouver, isn't always great for a young centre-back.
Yeah.
I think they don't have the experience necessary, really, there.
It feels like they're putting a lot of pressure on Twardek to create goals and maybe score a few. He's not really a goal scorer, but more creative.
I mean, the fact they've paid a fee for him as well puts a little bit of added pressure on you. Totally. I think they will beat TSS in the the Canadian Championship as things currently stand. TSS's roster isn't great, but there could be some changes over the next 4 weeks in the build-up to the game. I have to see how things go there. 2 other questions. We'll just do these quickly. Is this the year they make the playoffs? No.
Unfortunately, I don't think so.
Does Phil DeSantis survive after this season? And again, I say no.
I think I've said about this all along. I think this is. I think if they don't make the playoffs and his contract is up, then no.
Yeah.
I think for the way that this football club is run, which is run by a Canadian football club organization or public organization, community organization, that there's no desire for them to be paying a coach who's not coaching for them. So I think Phil was always safe within the terms of his contract. But if his contract is up and they don't make the playoffs, I don't see them giving him a new contract.
My bold prediction is that they will not finish last, because I do think Vancouver's finishing last.
My bold prediction is, and so this is a little bit, will sound a little, I don't say it in spite because, again, I respect the guy, but I'll say Rocco scores more own goals than goals.
Ooh.
Is that too harsh?
No, I think that could be accurate. As long as he gets 1 or 2 against TSS, I'll be happy with that.
He's not going to listen to this.
I wouldn't think so.
Well, if he only listens to this clip, you should go back and listen to the other thing.
I will cut this clip and put it on YouTube. You wanted to do more stuff on YouTube? I was going to say someone else might listen to it and let him know, but let's just move. Let's move into Ontario now. Let's move into Forge. 11 in, 9 out. Probably helped by the announcement this week that players that aren't Canadian, that have been in the league for more than 3 years, or in the country for more than 3 years, can count as domestics. I did see a lot of folk going, oh yeah, that's just to help Forge out. But I mean, it does help Forge out when you see the list of players.
But it helped Vancouver FC. Waro Diaz.
Well, yeah, but Diaz, yeah.
Domestic.
They look stronger, annoyingly. Forge, those that have moved on, I think it's mostly been cutting nose. That's not at the top level for them anymore. Daniel Nimick has the potential to be their best addition. And I'll come to my first question before we do our 3 words. I don't know what Daniel Nimick we're going to see. And we could tie into your Rocco prediction. Will we score more goals than own goals?
I say that jokingly because I have a lot of time for Nimick.
But yeah, I don't know what one we'll see this year. So that's my first question. My 3 words: another strengthening off season, because they've put together, as always, as you'd expect, a very strong team. And you look at the players that's come in: Brian White from York, Daniel Nimick from Halifax, Mo Babuli from York, and it's like Ben Payton's come back from Scotland with Ross County. Strong additions. What would your 3 words be for Forge?
Keep on rolling. Yeah, it's just so, because they've built themselves as like the club 1A club of winning in the league. Players want to go there. Players want to be in that winning space. I think most of the players also have a lot of time and respect for Bobby, right? I think if you ask players who have experience of the league, they typically want to go to play for Tommy or Bobby, right? Like, these are the places they want to go. They've been winning places, and they've had these kind of dynamic coaches or whatever. So they have that. This is year 7. They built a firm foundation from the beginning. Again, both those clubs were built off of local community clubs. Yeah. Local, what are they technically, academies or whatever. They built from a firm foundation, and neither of them has really let up. And so I think, keep the
the other teams have been behind the 8 ball from the start because of that.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's like good luck to them for doing it, but it's not been an even playing field from the start.
So they just keep leveraging that, which is what you want to do. Now, I will say one of the things I did hear was that Kunle Dadaluk was a player who ideally, the reason he left Pacific, he wanted to go to Europe. He wanted to go to Europe.
Yes.
And then I think things weren't working out in that respect. And then I had heard that Forge ended up, I guess, sort of messing with him, like leading him on, and then they dropped him. And that's how he ended up Vancouver FC. It was because
his options had kind of run out.
Yeah, his first two options had kind of the doors had closed, and
which is
in
a shame
Vancouver.
because he's a good player. And I guess you're not going to go back to your old team with your tail between your legs.
Yeah, so it's really good. And then I talked to someone kind of who knows the Forge world, and they're like, "Yeah, I could see us doing that." And I was like, "Okay, yeah, it's again, but you can only do that when like everyone wants to play for you,
Yes.
right? Like you can't
Well,
do
I know,
that.
yeah, because it's like
If
they
no
do
one wants to
pick. Well, you say everyone wants to play for you. Question 2.
Sorry.
Where in the world is Benny Badibanga? Well, the
Yeah,
answer is
sorry.
he is actually in Hamilton because there was a photo on social media a couple of weeks ago showing that he was actually in Hamilton because he was with his teammate Nana Ampoma wearing a Forge hat. I don't know what's happening there. It's another season, another weird situation with a key player for Forge.
Yeah, it's not great for them. It's not great for the league, but these things happen. And I will say, the one thing I will say is the stuff we've heard about the situation, I can at least appreciate how the dynamics have changed, right? The understanding or the things that have been alleged about the situation are that he came in and was told he could move for a certain amount or whatever. And I think after he performed so well, again, allegedly, Forge then were like, well, actually, we if we're going to move you, we need to receive this amount. And so that's kind of the stuff I'd heard. I don't know if you'd heard differently, but
just seeing what's been on social media and
so
that
like,
and it's been that. So.
If that is the case, and it may not be, but if that is the case, I can at least see Forge's perspective, right? And
Yeah.
at the same time, I can see the player's perspective, right?
It's all the option stuff, and folks say, oh, options aren't valid, and we've been there before with players, we'll be there again with players, and it's just unfortunate. He's such a talent. But for the rest of the league, if he's not back with them, hey, good for them.
But at the same time, for them, they've then went and recruited, like you said, Brian Wright.
Yeah.
And,
well, there's no room for him now if he wants to come back.
Yeah.
Yeah. They've basically said to York, okay, you've got some good players there. Let's just take them. And that's what they do. That's what they did with Pacific. They picked all Pacific's top players.
Yeah.
Now, as good as they are and as much as they're going to score, and we talked about this situation with them last year, my third question is, who is going to be their starting keeper? Because you've got Kolalat and you've got Kalongo, and so Kolalat is 25, Kalongo is 23, and neither of them covered themselves in glory, I felt, last year.
I'm surprised their kit man doesn't put on the jerseys dodgy 1, dodgy 2. It is the extreme weak link. I've talked to, again, some people who have connections or appreciations there, and they're like, no, like they're both up and coming. And I was someone who was very low on Emil Gazdoff in his early days at Pacific. Yeah. Obviously, he made significant improvements, but I don't see it from either of these guys in the amount that I've seen of them. In stadium highlights, full games, whatever. I just have not been impressed. Could one or both of them could good? Of course they could, but when you're a club like that, I just wonder: is this the way in which they're managing their salary allotment in terms of saying, okay, let's spend as little as we can on the keeper position with these kind of young prospects, so that then we can load everywhere else.
It's the Kevin Keegan, I'll win 5-4, and I'm happy with that.
Yeah.
I don't know which one's going to be the starter by the time we get into the season as well. No. It's like, I think it's up for grabs, and it's like, if someone makes a cock up, the other one's there to kind of come in. I also don't think they've got a great defence in front of them either. And that puts more pressure on Dan Nimick. He needs to perform. I mean, Dan Nimick's a great player. He just had a very dodgy year at times. Now, my bold prediction for Forge is that they will miss out on the championship game for the first time in 7 years. I think the championship game is going to be Ottawa Cavalry.
That is a very bold prediction. I'm going to couple my earlier bold prediction. It's going to tie in tandem with this, and that is that Forge will appear in the Voyageurs Cup final. Ooh. So Cavalry Forge.
Yeah, with 3 teams to go. York, 15 players out. It's been a big overhaul. Not as much as at Pacific, but just 1 player off. 12 players in at the time of us recording this. There might be more that's on the way. They've got a new coach in charge. They paid a fee for Massimo Ferrin. A couple of teams paying fees this off-season. Things are changing a little bit in the CPL. My 3 words in regard to all that is, I know they've lost some key pieces, but all areas feel strengthened. And that's 4 words, but all areas strengthened.
Yeah. I also think that Moba Bully's not as big as a loss as some might think.
Yeah. I also don't know that Brian Wright is that big a loss. I don't think he's irreplaceable.
That's fair that he's not irreplaceable. I mean, hopefully they'll give some time up top to Kid.
Shola.
Yeah. Jimmo.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'll bring my second question into this as well. It's like, does soon-to-be 17-year-old Shola Jimo, he's 17 next week, does he push on in his second season? Played 16 times last year, 4 goals and 2 assists. If we're talking about needing him to step up, is that a lot to put on young shoulders?
Yeah, it might be. But again, this is a club where, and I think their ownership, I think, also sees the value in bringing through the young players in a really, really significant way. So yeah, I could see him getting the minutes that would enable him to really, really push on. It'll be, for me, it's going to be interesting how Adonijah Reed does in a different context. And
I was going to mention that because, I mean, I'm saying all areas are strengthened. I guess up front is the area that on paper does look weaker, but I was kind of thinking like Gabby Bitar coming in is a guy that's going to chip in with goals, even though he's not a forward. He can play advance. Reed, though, he only got 3 goals with Pacific. He's not exactly a prolific goal scorer.
Yeah.
And you look at that York attack, him and Ferrin are the 2 old guys on it, and your other 2 forwards that's listed is 16, soon to be 17-year-old Jimo, and 17-year-old, soon to be 18, Bibishkov.
Yeah, and the thing, when you look at their attackers, they don't really have, like, the biggest guy is Julian Altobelli.
Yeah, and now like he's a 10. He can also be a forward as well, much like Gabby Bitar.
But he's only 6 feet. Like they're a small attacking group, which is, I don't think, it's like a smaller squad. I feel like size wise, which I think hurts you on set plays. Which in this league, set plays are really, really significant. But if you have a Gabby Bitar and he's scoring directly from set plays, it might not be as big a deal. But the more I mean, Luke Singh is huge for them, I think, coming in with his experience at the back. But I think even though you're not wrong in terms of they've added good pieces, I think they could actually slide a bit this year.
Oh, no, I do as well. Like, I actually have them missing the playoffs.
Oh, yeah, you have them 6.
Yeah. Fifth, sixth, seventh, fifth, sixth, fourth, fifth, sixth could flip anyway. It's like it's that kind of league.
But for me, players obviously I'll be watching closely aside from Shola I want to see how much time Kembo gets this year. And obviously Gabby.
He got at least a life when he went there.
Yeah. And Gabby, and then I think both of us are watching Elijah.
Yeah.
Elijah's I think exciting young person who I think just like loves the game, and I love the way he talks about the game.
We've never had on the show, and we really need to do that.
Oh yeah, we need to do a 1-on-1.
Yeah.
Or a 2, we need to interview them. It'll be interesting how he's used this year, because last year they even dropped him into the back line a little bit. So I think he'll obviously line up in midfield, but he's just a diverse player who Coach Benjamin last year really helped him blossom as a player and really just gave him that confidence and entrusted him as like one of his leaders on the pitch. And you saw Elijah just thrive. And even though I think they might not be as good as they were last year, I hope he does well, because I have a lot of time for him.
Yeah. Looking at the squad lists on Wikipedia, I was like, oh, this hasn't been updated since February 5th. I was like, oh, no, they maybe have added some players that I've missed, because they only have 1 goalkeeper listed. So I've gone onto their roster page on their website, and they only have 1 goalkeeper, 20-year-old Ivan Pavela.
That's right.
That can't be right, is it?
Maybe they're getting someone in on loan or something.
Oh, they must be. Wow, that is crazy.
Yeah, sorry, I was using their website.
Yeah, I've been using Wiki for this, and I'm like, wait a minute, that can't be right. 1 goalkeeper. Huh, interesting. Well, I mean, that's a big question there. You've got as well, like, where the goals coming from. We've kind of talked about that. The other question, how will 32-year-old Mauro Eustáquio fare as a first-year head coach. Now, I like the appointment. And I've spoken a lot that I feel the CPL and the NSL, because it's been missing in this country for so long, it needs to be leagues where domestic players get totally prioritised, and coaches. And I don't think, we've certainly not seen that in the NSL, and I know we've spoke about the reasons maybe behind that, of they haven't had the opportunities to bring the Canadian female coaches on. But I do like to have Canadian coaches in the CPL, and now we've got one in Mauro Eustachio. And I'm really interested to see how he does, and I hope he does well, because he seems a coach with young, fresh ideas. How it sits with the Mexican ownership, though, is the interesting one.
Yeah, I hope he does well. I do think I do think that this ownership hopefully is one that we look back on in whatever 5 or 10 years and see like it's been a good thing for the club, for the community, for the league. I think there's really big opportunities. I'm a little bit biased because, I grew up in New York region, and it's where I first really kicked the football, and the people there love, like, there's so many people who are passionate about football that it would be great to see them more fully embrace the club, and the club to become an even bigger part of the community. Having said that, they also might move it for further south from New York region, and that would be kind of interesting to see how they deal with all that if they get a stadium.
Yeah, 'cause I mean, like, it was interesting going on the call with the owners at the end of last season. They're so passionate about the team and being in this league, and it was so refreshing to hear. Like, they're in this long term. And you look at the roster and you'd think, oh, they're just going to bring all these Mexican players in. There's only 2 Mexican players on the roster, and one is a loan. The rest are like all Canadian. And this is the kind of foreign ownership it's actually quite nice to see. I think they're doing it right.
Yeah.
And I wish them well. I think they've also got some of the best jerseys in the CPL this season as well.
Yeah.
And I think they're going to be there or thereabout, but I think they will just miss out. But my bold prediction is that Gabby Bitar will finish the season as the top scorer at the club.
My question for you, though, will he beat his CPL high in the season, which I think is 6, I want to say?
I'm going to say yes.
Okay.
I guess call-ups for overseas stuff could hit into that. That's always something to worry about. But I think he will. I think he's going to thrive there. I was disappointed to see him leave Vancouver, and that I thought he was one of the best players last year for VFC. But I think the rumours came out that he was another one that wanted away. I think he's found a good landing spot. I think he'll be a regular starter. He should play every game if he's fit, I would imagine. And let's just hope Mauro Eustachio can come in and do that. What would your bold prediction be for York?
Yeah, I think they might be in the bottom 2, is my bold prediction.
Ooh.
Again, I for Elijah's sake, I'm happy to be proven very wrong. But
yeah. So 2 teams to go. Ottawa, another new coach, 41-year-old Diego Mejia, 12 in, 12 out. Some big pieces gone. They've lost the likes of Ollie Bassett, Matteo De Brienne. 3 loanees coming in from Liga MX side, Atletico San Luis. 2 Mexicans, 1 American. That is the kind of things I was expecting more at York. And I was then quite surprised that Ottawa had done that. Now, Atletico San Luis are a team that's down the bottom of Liga MX. Unknown quantities. And that is my 3 words. Ottawa this season are an unknown quantity for me. I genuinely don't know if they're going to be really strong. I think they will be. Or if they're just going to be like also rans and kind of mid-table battling for the lower playoff spots.
I'm going to say too good to fail. Like, I think there are still too many quality players in that side for them to have a massive drop-off, which would be understandable when you lose some of the players of the quality that they've lost. But it's still a side with guys like, Didic, Aparicio. He's not going to let his team lose. He can be sometimes dodgy, but Nathan Ingham, Samuel Salter can be someone who bags in the goals. Sissoko, Balou Tabla, Noah Verhoeven's back from a year on loan at Valor, which hopefully made him better. And then I did not see this. I did not even see it in your notes until I just look at the roster now. I don't know how I missed this, but Brett Levi.
Yeah, that was one of my 3 questions. What will Brett Levi's bring to the team? coming in, 32-year-olds now, was with Detroit City, coming back to Canada. I think this is a great landing spot for Brett. He's someone else we'll get on the show in the coming weeks as well for a chat. Always had a lot of time for Brett. He's married now. He's settled back in Canada. Strong addition, I think, in the defence for them.
And he played, I just double-checking, he played 32 games, and he only had one goal, but that's 32 games for Detroit last year. Mm-hmm. Or I guess that's over 2 years. Sorry, that's over 2 years. Okay. That makes sense.
It's like if he can stay injury-free, of course, which was the big thing in his time here, sadly. But he seems to have turned that corner. He's a player like Samari Kugbe that you were starting to think, oh no, are these injuries just going to completely derail his career? But full play to Brett.
Yeah.
He's really made a good career of it. I'm sure he's been waiting for a team to come to Saskatchewan so he can return home and play for Saskatchewan. Hope he gets to fulfill his dream before he hangs his boots up, but it's looking less and less likely in that regard.
When he came through the university game, he was like a goal-scoring winger, right?
Yeah.
And as he's gotten older, he's moved more of a fullback or more of a less of a goal scorer.
He's been more left back, but I mean, he can still be left wing back or play in the midfield role. I think he's going to be a good addition for them.
So he's basically to take DeBrienne's spot, right?
I would guess so.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I mean, the three loanees from the Mexican team, I know nothing about.
Yeah.
I mean, it's two midfielders, a defender. Who knows what you're going to get from them?
Well, that's why I say they're kind of too big to fail or too good to fail. I think there's enough quality in there for them to not have an issue with qualifying for the playoffs.
I mean, the guys that they're getting in, the two Mexican guys, so it's not young guys. It's guys that's played in USL and MLS Next Pro in the case of Rodriguez. And then you've got guys that's been in Liga MX, maybe not made lots of appearances, but they've been with the likes of Monterrey and Pachuca and Club America.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows how quick they settle? And it's like we've seen it here in Vancouver. When I was speaking, I can't remember who I was speaking to now or on the interview about this, because you've got Navarro at Vancouver just now, who I still think has the potential to be a good player. I couldn't remember the name of the Mexican guy before that you had in year one that didn't work out at all, and he ended up going back to Mexico.
Gail Sandoval.
That was who it was.
Yeah.
I forget what interview. It might have been with Marco Bustos, actually, that we were talking about that. And you just never know how these Mexican guys are going to land.
Yeah, well, Jose Navarro, that's been, he last year apparently suffered severely from homesickness and just settling and whatever. I mean, I can imagine the food is a big enough shock.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're not wrong. There's some people just don't settle well.
The other big question, of course, for Ottawa is who's going to step into Ollie Bassett's ginger boots.
I don't know. He's not going to fill all the goal scoring and whatever, but in terms of leadership and will to win and pushing on, obviously that's got to at least be partially Manny Aparicio.
Yeah.
In terms of the goal contributions, maybe it's Balou Tabla or one of these lesser-known players to us.
Well, the interesting thing is, Ottawa's got those three loan guys from Atletico San Luis, but then they've also signed Juan Castro, a midfielder from Atletico San Luis, as a permanent addition. And he's 33-year-old, 224 appearances for that club. So I don't know if he'll be the guy that's going to be pulling the strings for them. We'll see. So bold prediction for me for Ottawa, pushing for first all the way to the end, and I think they're going to win the North Star Cup.
Oh, wow. I'm going to say they make the Voyageurs Cup final. I'm joking.
It's a three-way.
No, I'm going to say bold prediction. Yeah, they are going to be, let's say, a top two side in the league.
Last team, Halifax. 9 in, 9 out. They've lost Ferrin. They've lost Nimick. They lost Daniels to the other CPL sides, as we mentioned. My 3 words, pressure on Patrice. I don't know that he gets too much more to work with if he doesn't get the job done this year.
That's really, really valid. I think for me, the 3 words are home faithful always. They are the one club, they don't have obviously the biggest ground, but their ground I feel is the most consistent. They are the club in the CPL who seems to have synergized the most with their community and have gotten so many things right around their stadium and growing their club and working with the community to try and make that even better long term and all those kinds of things. And Derek Martin has obviously done a lot of good things, and people in their supporter community like James Covey and others have done a lot of hard work to make that happen. So yeah, I think that lifts you. And so even though they've never had the most impressive roster, I think that they get more points than they should sometimes because that home crowd. And I'll give one example from last year. There's no way that they deserved a point that was gifted to them on a play by Mr. Ricci. But I think part of that is just the intangibles of playing at home in front of that crowd.
I'm just out of curiosity wanting to see where Austin Ricci is. He's without a club at the moment.
Yeah, it sounds about right.
Actually, so is Jordan Swibble. I had looked that up as well, so he hasn't found another club yet. Different reasons, I'm sure, than Austin Ricci. My 3 questions for Halifax. Do they have a quality goalkeeper? Because they brought in Yesley, who I am not a big fan of, although I was when Valor played TSS. I loved him in that.
Yeah. What was the name of the keeper? Was it Fillion?
Fillion, yeah. He went to a club in Malta.
Oh, he did? That's where he went.
Yeah. So they brought in Yesley from Ottawa. So there's him and 2 young keepers on the book. So I think Yesley's not a great keeper. I think it's a downgrade on Fillion. I liked Fillion. I know he had his detractors, but again, he's a keeper that brought the passion, and I like that. So I think the goalkeeper is a weak link for them.
I totally agree. Fillion, I can't believe he's only 29. I would have thought he was so much older.
Yeah.
I didn't think he was great, but I also thought that he shone in some big moments. And I agree with you about Yesley. I think he's one of the more overrated keepers within the league itself in these last 3 years. I think it's shocking that he's going to be their number one. And that's as much as the home crowd could lift them, that could be something that lets them down in a significant way.
I mean, maybe he'll start to play out of his skin, have a stellar year, and we'll be proved wrong. My other question's a kind of selfish one. Does Jovan Mann stick with him, or does he go back to UBC? He's certainly got the potential to make it. I'd love to see him back at UBC, but he's quality. He should be playing pro. He should have been playing with the Whitecaps. Decided to go the college route instead and leave WFC 2. Now he's in the CPL. When I interviewed him towards the end of last year after the draft, he had mentioned he just wanted to try new surroundings and just get away from where he was comfortable to kind of like push him. And that's the kind of attitude I love to see. I think he's got a great chance to make it, but I'll tie that in with my 3rd question. Patrice Geyser doesn't play his young guys, as we've seen. It's been a struggle for under 21 minutes. Is this finally going to be the year where they're not scrambling for minutes down the stretch?
I wonder if
Man can certainly help that.
I wonder if we could like give them some of ours and like get something in return.
I know you should be able. That should be a trading thing. Like if it was MLS, they'd have something for that just now. I'm pretty sure. I mean, I look at the roster and the age of the guys, and I think it'll be a bit easier for them to get their under 21 minutes if Patrice uses his squad properly. But there's a lot of older guys in there. They're one of the older rosters, I think, in the league. So I don't know, maybe he will be scrambling again. And it might take 20-year-old Jovan Mann to be the guy that gets the starts and carries a lot of those minutes.
Yeah, that totally might work in his favor, for sure.
Yeah. My bold prediction, and this is quite bold, I think they'll scrape into the playoffs in 5th.
I think they'll scrape out of the playoffs in 6th.
Well, let's get into our final rankings and round this up. Here's the 3 teams I've got that don't make the playoffs.
Right.
I've got Vancouver 8th, Valor 7th, York 6th.
I'm going to go Valor, York, Halifax.
Well, I guess I'll do the top 5. I've got Halifax 5th, Pacific 4th, and Pacific, Halifax, York for me could just switch those places around. My top 3 I think is pretty much going to be Ottawa, Forge and Cavalry, and I've got them in that order. Ottawa 3rd, Forge 2nd, Cavalry top.
I might be going back on some of my earlier bold predictions, but I'll say just to balance out your Vancouver negativity, I'll go with Pacific fifth, Vancouver fourth, that's bold in and of
That's
itself.
bold.
And then I'll go, because of the goalkeeping, I'll go Forge third, Ottawa second, and Cavs first.
And who's going to win the whole playoffs?
Vancouver FC, of course.
Oh, okay.
This is my heart. On my head, yeah, I don't disagree with your show. Do you say Cavalry Ottawa in the final?
Yeah, but Ottawa winning.
I think that's a good shout.
Well, that is it for our CPL preview. Get in touch as usual and tell us how little we know about the CPL. I enjoyed doing that. It was long. Hope you enjoy listening to it too. It's nearly it for the show. We're going to finish with this episode's wavelength, and we're actually coming more up to date than we usually are. We're going back to a song that was released in March 2019 from Sheffield band Baby Bird. You might know them from their huge hit in the late 90s, You're Gorgeous, that reached number 3 in the UK charts in 1996. They're very prolific. They've released so many albums, compilation albums, and this is a bonus track from their 2019 compilation album, Happy Stupid Nothing, and it's an instrumental track. It's been a long show, so we thought we'd go with a shorter song. This is Baby Bird, Football. From 2019, Baby Bird, Football. So that is it now for the show. We've got a couple of final things to talk about for our goodbyes. One of them is adult provincial cups start this weekend, and in the A Cup, there was some questioning as to whether they'd be allowed to take part as they're affiliated with a professional team, but Vancouver FC under-19s have qualified for the provincial A Cup by finishing 4th in the Fraser Valley League, and their first match goes on Saturday at Aldergrove Athletic Park against Victoria Highlanders. It's almost a Canadian Championship game.
And we're going to have our newly domesticated number 9, Weirdo Diaz. He used to be under 19.
Yeah, I don't know what the criteria will be for that. Like, if you can play professional first team players, because it is an amateur competition.
I hope what's his name's in the squad. He scored a couple goals this year. One I saw, one I didn't see. The one I saw was brilliant and the match winner, and that's Lucas Friend.
But you're hoping to get out to that. I'm commentating. It's the start of the League One BC season on Friday. There's a game on Friday, a game on Sunday. Lots of football this weekend, and obviously Vancouver FC kicking off their season as well. Any final thoughts from you, Zach?
Yeah, get out to Willoughby Community Park on Sunday, 4 o'clock kickoff. It's going to be good times. I know what I wanted to say to you. I know you love the Cup. I know you love big matches and whatever. In the semifinals of the DFB Pokal, 3rd Division Arminia Bielefeld hosting the holders, Bayer Leverkusen, who've already knocked out Bayern Munich in the competition.
Mm-hmm.
And the 3rd-tier team will be in the final after a shocking 2-1 victory, including, I think their winning goal was like near the last
I'll have to find the highlights of that. That's right up my street. I mean, Cup football, I won't go into it all again. It's the best thing for me. That's why I just like the US Open Cup, as we started this show off talking about, has been just fantastic to watch. And it's everything I hope the Canadian Championship can be one day.
Well, that you partly lived out even with the TSS victory.
Yeah. I mean, I still get goosebumps thinking about that. Even the defeat to Pacific, it's like it was such a magical game. And yeah, hopefully we'll get some magical games and some cup shocks in the Canadian Championship this year. That is it, though, for this episode of the show. We talked about going to 2 episodes a week. Zach and me were talking before recording this. It is a lot of work. 6 hours of podcasts, and I brought out an hour's extra podcast this week as well. So we might not be doing that as regular as I hope. We'll kind of see how the numbers are and just how life gets by as well, because it does take up a lot of time recording and editing. But we'll be back with another AFTN Soccer Show soon. We'll be talking Whitecaps taking on Colorado, the start to the CPL season, and we've got some interviews to bring you as well. We'll be back with that probably Sunday, maybe Monday. Until then, thanks for listening. Take care. Mon the Caps, and just get out this weekend and go and see some local soccer in BC. There's a plethora of options to choose from. Get out there and enjoy the sun and a little bit of footy.
Going to your first match is an experience you never forget. The atmosphere of what's going on around the pitch looks beautiful, and you always look and go, wow, I'd love to play here one day. If you get the bug, it's going to stay with you for life.
10 minutes left. Yeah,